on, everybody? Welcome to episode 11 of the Brent Pella Show. I'm super excited for this episode because I have a guest, Dr. Gary Shlifer. He is he's a doctor, okay? That's why doctor is at the beginning of his name. We talked a lot about ancestral medicine, ancestral nutrition, healthy habits, the way of the world today, how people are living today versus how maybe we should be living, how to optimize your nutrition and have a healthy, happy life. And at the end, we get into some info on psychedelic medicine, which I'm super interested in. And I hope you learn a lot, and I hope you enjoy it. And without further ado, or further me talking, please enjoy episode 11 with Dr. Gary. All right, dude, we're in.
All right, let's rock and roll.
What's up, bro?
Brent Pella.
Dude, I listen to your music, dude.
Oh, dude. I can't. I realized I sent you some of this like random shit that I was jamming on at home, and then it got me all excited, and I pulled up my old album from my band, and it's
dude, it was good.
Good fucking memories.
It was good, man.
Yeah.
You got like a Jimi Hendrix flair.
Oh yeah. Well, I will take that compliment all day long.
Yeah, it was really good, man. Thanks for coming over, bro. We've been talking on Instagram for a while about doing this, and I'm happy to make it happen, even during the middle of a world pandemic.
Are we in the middle? Are we in the end? Is it just starting?
I don't
know.
What
the heck is going on, man?
Dude. That's the thing. I don't know if we're in the middle, the end, the beginning. I have no idea. It's so hard to tell. But before we get into that, we just so people have some context, will you tell me about like how you got started in medicine and what your current status is? I know you really, the most interesting thing I thought when I first listened to your podcast was that you were born in Moscow.
Oh, yes.
So you were possibly a Russian spy. We don't know.
Yeah.
But
double agent.
Double agent.
I don't even know I'm an agent.
Right. You're a triple agent.
They're going to activate me like pretty soon. I'm waiting.
So what's your background, dude? You went to UCLA for medicine.
Yeah. So I'm at this time, I'm an internal medicine physician. I started here in Los Angeles. I'm a Russian immigrant. We came when I was about 3. My mom's a doctor. I went to UCLA. I grew up in the Valley here in Los Angeles. I'm a Valley boy. I love it here. Had a really great time at UCLA, made a lot of friends, tried a career in research. I did that for a few years. I did a career in music like we were talking about.
Yeah.
And then life kind of just led me to medicine. Went to medical school in Arizona. That was really intense. And then
when you go to medical school, do you have to pick a specific field yet, or is it just general?
Just general. I really thought being a musician, being kind of like hands-on, I really thought I would be a surgeon, an anesthesiologist, a pain medicine doctor. That's where I was headed. To be honest with you, I was pretty discouraged with the training. Mm-hmm. It was not what I expected, and we can dive into that. But I think most people realize that, especially in this situation, like medicine is an art, and it's not what a lot of people think it is. But anyhow, as I went through training, I really was attracted to being an internal medicine doctor. I think, when I visualized what a doctor was, it was a person that knows all sorts of disease and can treat everyone and sort of a generalist. So yeah, I ended up going to the most competitive residency I could find, and that was in Indiana University. That was, a culture shock for a guy who grew up in the Valley to go to the Midwest. I was like, whoa. But I was kind of looking for that, right? I wanted to like build on my experiences. I'd done a bunch of different things throughout my life, and I knew that it would be like a little chunk of my life. So I went there, and it was really intense again. I learned a lot. Again, kind of walked away disillusioned with like how we practice medicine in America. Mm-hmm. And over the last 4 years since I finished, I really started to kind of develop my own practice style. Listeners would probably understand the term functional medicine or integrative medicine or lifestyle medicine, however you want to package it. But I've sort of moved away from using pharmaceuticals. We talked about sort of an ancestral health approach to medicine.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been my journey, like over the last 3 or 4 years, figuring out what's a healthy nutrition program, how to use medicine correctly, how we sort of abuse medicine, even when it comes to like mental health, what we do right, what we do wrong, how we could do better. I'm real passionate about psychedelic medicine and psychotherapy, which I think are the future. And I think there's kind of a wave coming of this psychedelic renaissance, which a lot of people talk about. So I started Evolve Healthcare 3 years ago. It's my practice in Woodland Hills. I have a naturopathic physician who's amazing, and Dr. Caitlin Kalstein. I work with my mom, who's an MD DPM.
Oh,
She's
cool.
been a doctor for her whole life.
It's a family business?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
She does a bunch of different stuff, Dr. Marina Shlifer. And then, so that's kind of been evolving. And sort of parallel to that, as I was realizing that so much of what I was trained on wasn't really true, or at least there was other ways to practice medicine, I developed a company called Sapien. And that's with Brian Sanders of Food Lies and my business partner, Yaniv Fatucci of Attack Media. So he's a producer, sort of creative. Brian is an engineer who went on his own self-journey of figuring out medicine, or nutrition, I should say. We came together and we're developing a documentary called Food Lies. We have our Sapien Diet and Lifestyle program we're about to launch here in the next week, actually. It's been a long time coming.
Oh, cool.
I've been sort of implementing this program in my clinic for the last few years.
So, dude, you're building
We're doing
an
a bunch of
empire.
shit, man.
You're building a healthy empire. I love it. You went to, so, all right, take me back to Indiana. You went to Indiana University, an LA Valley boy, and you got culture shock because there's so much corn there.
And good steak, it turns out.
Oh,
really
nice.
good beef.
Really good steak?
I love it.
Actually, that's true. Every time I've done shows in Missouri and like the Midwest, I always thought when I was traveling through those places, like, oh, I'm going to have to eat at like Applebee's tonight.
Yeah.
But no, there's always some local diner.
Yes.
I even saw once, dude, I was driving through the entire state of Missouri, right? Because I had to go from one side of Missouri to the other side to do these college gigs. And it was cheaper to drive than it was to fly. This was in early 2018.
Okay, a couple years ago.
Yeah. So I drove all the way from the east side of Missouri to the west side of Missouri. And it was a beautiful drive. Turns out Missouri isn't just meth and crazy
it's
people.
It's
a
a
lot of fun
country.
people,
Yeah, it's great.
And I pulled into this town, this tiny little town, and I was so hungry. And I saw this diner, and outside of the diner, they had a sign that said 100% organic, grass-fed, grass-finished, locally grown beef. And I was like, what? Because you think, like, I think a lot of people have a misconception that the flyover states are all living in the 30s and, like, they haven't really caught up, when in reality, there's a lot of people out there that are doing it the right way. Maybe not.
Well, it's funny.
Most,
I think you're right. When it comes to this grass-fed, grass-finished beef question, we knew that was the right way to raise cattle and eat meat, like hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
And it was just over this last 100 years that we lost our way, factory farming, subsidies to feed cows corn, and we destroyed. And look, now we're seeing the ramifications. Again, not to get to the COVID situation, but
we'll get there.
These factory farms are falling apart.
Yeah.
And there's a huge boom in the looking at local farmers, and those people, for the most part, want to raise animals in a respectable manner and create quality food. So yeah, that grass-fed, grass-finished, organic concept, it has a home in the Midwest. It has a home, and it's really, I think, the cities where people are real confused about what is healthy, quote unquote healthy. So
sure. So when you were at Indiana, was there like a moment that really flipped your entire view on medicine? Do you remember anything? Or was it kind of like a gradual process where you were like, I don't know if this is the right way to be doing this stuff?
There was a moment. I didn't know how bad we were at end of life care. And not to get morbid, but that was my senior thesis as a resident. And what drives a lot of my opinions is I learned so much about how we deal with the elderly, nursing home system, end of life care system, the way we give recommendations for this. And I was on a couple rotations in a row where there was a lot of morbidity and death. And I really took to communicating with my patients and helping them through it and letting people die with dignity and not promoting basically doing everything you can at the very end, which is what we do. And, for people that don't know, we in America spend way more money than any other country, and a huge percentage of our medical spendings are on the last 6 months of life. And it essentially induces suffering because people are dying on tubes, they're dying poked and prodded and miserable, and there's no like honesty about death. Yeah. And for me, that fucking bothered me. I could not be, I always say, I'm not in the business of making old people miserable. Like, I'm not here to like do shit just to do shit. I'm here to be thoughtful. And I did a couple rotations where I would help people get to that point where they accepted the end. And there was a lot of butting heads with my attendings. Mm-hmm. And then I found attendings that got me, and they'd be like, yes, you got it. But we were the outliers, you know? Yeah. And that's when it made me just step back and say, hold on. You know, you could have all the fucking recommendations in the world. You can have, you know, you could be a doctor for 50 years and have your opinions. But in reality, you know, it's about being a thoughtful human being and understanding that that's a person in front of you, and that just doing a bunch of shit doesn't make them better. It may make you feel better. So there was a month where I butt heads with my attending. And at that,
what do you mean by attending, real quick?
Attending is, so when you're in a residency, you have a team of physicians, you have medical students, you have resident physicians, you have lower level residents like first year, like interns, then you have your senior residents, and then you have your attending that sort of runs the team. So I was going through that system. You know, I was a medical student first, and I was an intern, and it was during my second year where I finally got a handle on the basic medicine, and like the interpersonal skills kicked in. Yeah. Right. And that's where I think doctors diverge, right? Everyone that's a doctor. I believe my colleagues are brilliant people. It's very, very hard to get through this training, have their heart in the right place. But we do not evaluate potential doctors for interpersonal skills. Mm-hmm. There's no evaluation of, can you look someone in the eye and feel if you're freaking them out or if you're making them feel good, or how your energy projects onto this person in front of you. And so I started seeing the cracks in the system. I started seeing that you can get a bunch of brilliant people in a room, but if they don't have the skills to feel the vibes, whatever you want to call it, the interpersonal, and then learn how to do better. And then furthermore, you have a system that doesn't emphasize that. It emphasizes, what did Sir William Osweiler in 19 whatever, like, what are his 5, like, why are you asking me that? Right. That this is a human being in front of me. Who cares what Osweiler thought, or Osler? That's my point. Like, like there was so much esoteric bullshit that, while intellectually is fascinating, does not produce good physicians. Mm-hmm. And when I realized that shit, I really leaned into my strengths, which is feeling people, like getting in touch with who's in front of me.
Kind of creating a connection.
Doctor-patient relationship. And it doesn't take a long time. You just need to be present, you know? And so when I realized that, I really started standing up for myself. By the time I was graduating residency, I got the award for, and I always talk about this, the most likely to complain. I wasn't complaining. I was trying to show you the fucking bullshit you were doing. But
they have an award for that?
Yeah, you know, they do like, that's funny, they made it fun, right?
Sure.
And it was meant as a joke, but I was like, and I took it as a joke, but
that's also a compliment, in a way, because you're the one speaking out, right?
Now it is, because of who I am, because of the business I built, and trying to take a position in the public eye of like, you don't need to sit there and quote every fucking study. Like, I'm sorry, studies are good. Evidence-based medicine is important. It is not the end-all be-all. That is not the way you practice medicine, is just looking at research. I don't believe that makes a good doctor or scientist. Mm-hmm. There's humanity. Mm-hmm. There's reality. There's also millions of years of human experience that has been dismissed for the most part. And if you're, you know, like why I mentioned I work with a naturopathic doctor, a lot of them are marginalized in Western medicine. And that's a huge disservice to our patients, because there's just so many ways to heal someone. There's so many ways to treat someone. To just narrow yourself down to just doing surgery, just prescribing drugs, just prescribing supplements or herbs, like, that's not good care. So I really believe in this concept of integrative medicine, where you take life experience, you take history, like human history, evolutionary history, ancestral history. You also take evidence-based medicine. You take knowledge about pharmaceuticals. You take new research, and you integrate all of it.
That's what I think because when the coronavirus stuff all first started happening and people were first putting out their reactions, one of the things that stood out to me was when I read somewhere, I heard somebody say, maybe this will help us get back in touch with the way we're supposed to live our lives. Because a lot of people, I don't think, do things to prevent unhealthy lives or prevent disease until it's too late, right? And now that you've been in the business of like preventative medicine now,
trying to
more
be.
or less, you're
Yeah.
trying to be. Do you think that this whole experience with the virus and the whole pandemic is going to help open people's minds to the way that they really should be living? It's going to give everybody pause, give everybody like the chance to give it real second thought and take a step back and look at how they're living?
I don't really think it will.
That's optimism,
I mean,
dude.
well, I don't mean it in a cynical way.
But people should.
They should. I think there's a bunch of good that will come of this. There's a bunch of great research now on things like vitamin D and vitamin C and different lifestyle changes that promote immune support, right? And things like vitamin D, for example, that would never have more research because no one can own vitamin D, and research studies are driven by a lot of dollars.
Right.
And so things like vitamin C would never be studied. But in this crazy environment, when we were scrambling, people were doing whatever they can do, and we got some really great information. Now, integrating that information into the public psyche or into public health knowledge, I don't see it happening. And this is probably, if I'm going to speak on my strong feelings about COVID, this is where we're really, I'm going to say, we're really fucking up, because our leaders should not be arguing about hydroxychloroquine. Like, we should not be arguing about masks. We should be talking about the elephant in the room, which is nations with obesity, with diabetes, with lung disease, but really you can think about it as metabolic disease induced by unhealthy metabolism. Those are the people dying. Those are the people suffering. And there's no pill for that. Mm-hmm. The answer is lifestyle change. And for a lot of those people that are way far down the line of chronic disease, there's no reversing it. And that's the tough pill we have to swallow, that this virus is exposing our weaknesses. If you have a vitamin D less than 20, your chance of getting a serious complication or death from COVID is huge.
Vitamin D deficiency?
Less
than 20?
Less than 20 nanograms per milliliter.
Okay.
But just like in America, the way we measure it, and people will get their vitamin D tested at their doctor's office, and if your level is less than 20, you have a severe hormone deficiency. Rhonda Patrick recently went on Joe Rogan, and she's the first real person going on a platform as big as his to talk about this. Yeah. And like we talked about it a bit, vitamin D is a hormone. It's a steroid hormone.
Yeah.
It's not a vitamin. It's a misnomer. It's like mislabeled. It does not just affect your bone health, which is the way I was taught and most doctors think about. It affects your immune system. And now the research is coming out. It affects your gut health. And we all know, or are starting to learn, how important gut health is. It definitely affects your mood how labile your mood is.
Yeah.
And that's just to name a few factors. On our Sapien platform, we'll be releasing a ton of information about this, just because this is a really powerful intervention that you can do. Which is supplement vitamin D and go out into the sun.
Go out into the sun.
You got it.
Yeah.
And why are our leaders not doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on those recommendations? Like, to me, that's where we're failing. We're failing on, if over the last few months we were honest with ourselves and say, we have an obesity epidemic of horrifying proportions.
Why do you think people are so scared to confront that? Because it really is a fact. I mean, if you've traveled around the world, you'll see it. You know, what do you think is the hesitation there for people?
It's hard to change course. Not to go too deep into the nutrition story, but we used to eat a healthy diet in the 1800s, like we did in the early 1900s.
Yeah, and
then we started messing with and developing this concept of Western medicine. There was a bunch of arguments about nutrition. Instead of anchoring ourselves in our ancestral ideas, it was, we need evidence. And there was a battle. There was a battle between this guy, Yudkin, and Keyes, and Ansel Keys. Some of your listeners might know the story, and I can talk about it if you want. But basically, there was a battle of public opinion. What is causing everyone to have heart disease. Heart disease was killing people.
What
Eisenhower
time period of this? 50s?
Yeah. This was kind of rolling out over the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. This is when we were developing Western medicine. That's when we started doing evidence-based research, and we really got our hands on it. And so there was a theory proposed that fat caused heart disease, diet heart hypothesis. Okay, and that was a theory. It made enough sense, and this is probably what most people listening think. You eat fat, it makes you fat. When you're eating the fat, it ends up in your artery, because that's what we see, cholesterol and fat in the artery, and you get a heart attack. So simple enough. Stop eating fat, and you'll do great.
Yeah.
It's very simplistic, and the body and physiology is not that simple.
Right.
And we were wrong.
So that was a hypothesis pitched by, I assume,
a group
team
of this guy Ansel Keys, who was a botanist, not even a doctor, really promoted it aggressively. And he was really like vocal and very eloquent. And if you look back into the 1960s, there's iconic images on Time magazine of this guy with thick framed black glasses. That was Ansel Keys. He was like a public figure. People looked to him for guidance.
Jamie, can we pull up Ansel Keys, please? Jamie, Jamie, let's pull up a picture of Ansel Keys. Yeah, don't say anything though. Don't say anything. Oh, there he is.
There he is, with the thick frame glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy really pushed this concept of the diet heart hypothesis. There were other researchers battling against him. Most famous, this guy Yudkin, I can never remember his name. He was a mild-mannered, quiet guy and was like, nah, I think it's the sugar and flour, processed food. Meanwhile, we're making a lot of flour. We're making a lot of sugar. Like, we're growing a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of money to be made to continue that. And what happened was, instead of doing the research, they sort of made the recommendation. They're like, you know what? Low fat is good. Cholesterol is bad. Low cholesterol is the recommendation. We got to eat grains. Grains are an essential part of our diet. That's a longer story.
Now, do you know, or is there any evidence to say that any of the grain companies or the sugar companies that were on the rise were funding those studies or having any type of influence?
I don't want to get into the conspiracy theories of it all, because I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think that it was just a series of events that led to this. I think, yes, it's more difficult to grow healthy meat and do everything correctly. You can't grow a company to this like global, like Tyson Foods, these giant companies. You can't really do that and make as much money as they were making. It was a money grab. So I'm saying it's not a conspiracy as much as it was a money grab. Were they funding the studies? Sure, they were. Everyone was funding everyone. They still do. Everything's about money. But I just don't want it to sound like a conspiracy. It's just a story. It's history. It's like the history of America, and it's how things laid out. And so to get to your question of, why are we not talking about it? It's been 60, 70 years, right? And all these doctors and scientists and leaders of the CDC and all the or I should say the American Diabetes Association, all these things, they all have been promoting something, and for them to say, we were wrong,
right,
publicly, would be really bad.
Yeah.
And it would hit a lot of people's pocketbooks. So I think there's a lot of reasons why it's very hard to change, but there's subtle things that are happening. American food guidelines dropped the cholesterol limitation. So, they used to say,
I saw that. Yeah.
But why? But no one knows. No one knows. Do you know how profound that is? If you went to if there was news media talking about, we were wrong about cholesterol, everyone. Cholesterol is not bad for you. It turns out
it makes up your cells.
It's what makes like an animal, a mammal, and not a plant. Like it's the thing. Vitamin D is made off of cholesterol. Every cell in your body is made. Your brain fires on cholesterol. Like, cholesterol is the building blocks of life. Maybe we were wrong.
Yeah.
So, I think that it's and now there's a vegan movement. There's a lot of forces behind that, both financial, religious forces. People should know the Seventh-day Adventist Church brought forth the concept of veganism in the 1920s. It got anchored into our food recommendations early on, even before that battle. Oh, yeah. And this is all on Wikipedia. I say that and people are like, Wikipedia. Yeah, dude, a lot of people read Wikipedia, and if you're putting a bunch of bullshit on there, it's going to get deleted.
Wikipedia also, I think Wikipedia is more or less legit because there are sources at the bottom of everything, and everything can be sourced. And as soon as somebody writes something false, it gets flagged, it gets taken down. So I believe in Wikipedia for the most part.
All this stuff, and I could give references if everyone wants, and there's other more eloquent and brilliant people that know all the research studies that talk about this. I'm not coming up with this. I just couldn't accept like moderate health or mediocrity as like how our bodies are supposed to be. Like, I always tell this story. Like, I was in residency and I would work out so much. And I'd get all ripped up.
You get jacked, bro?
I fucking
You lift, bro?
swolled out, bro.
Dog, you lift it?
Yeah. I'd run.
What type of pre you taking, dude?
Bro, I take all the creatine. So anyway, I was doing all the shit. Like, I wanted to, I grew up with like Ultimate Warrior and Van Damme, and like that's the body I wanted. Even though now I know those dudes were juicing it up, which is
Definitely.
whatever. I'd get there, and then, but this is what fucked me up, is I would then get really busy and not be able to work out and just eat normal food, like the normal food. And I'd slowly start losing my muscles and gaining weight. And be like a human body is not inherently unhealthy.
Right.
You don't just deteriorate over time. Like, we've accepted that an old person is just frail and stuck in a nursing home. No, that's bullshit. We do that to people by living an unnatural life. Mm-hmm. And so that's what the kernel of distrust, or the kernel or the question that was in my mind. Like, what am I doing to deteriorate my body? If I'm not working out 2 hours a day, if I have no chance of maintaining my health, how is my patient who has 3 kids and a job going to like maintain their health? And it's because of shitty food recommendations. It's because of archaic ideas about fat, archaic ideas about protein and carbohydrates, archaic ideas about fasting, which is so important for human health, is not eating sometimes.
And also just the messaging that we've been like programmed with, right? I think you might have said it on a podcast that I listened to. If not, I'll just come off as brilliant and take it as my own, which is totally fine. But the phrase "breakfast is the most important meal of the day." Was that you?
Yeah.
Did you say this? Yeah. So you said this on a podcast, and it resonated so much because, dude, I've been skipping breakfast for like 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't eat breakfast.
I don't know about breakfast.
Yeah.
Breakfast or dinner?
The people who said breakfast is the most important meal of the day were trying to sell you
Food
fucking
companies.
breakfast, dude.
That was a fucking food company.
It was an ad line.
Yeah.
It was like saying Coca-Cola, enjoy it, or whatever. Nike, just do it. It's the same phrasing, but it got so ingrained with people that now most people can't imagine waking up and not eating right away.
And the real mindfuck is that the doctors are in on it. It's not that they don't know any better.
Can you talk a little bit about like what's physically happening to your physiology when you wake up and you don't eat right away, or just the importance of fasting and kind of how that can relate to a healthy life and immune system?
So, as I went through this journey of figuring out nutrition, I have landed on this concept that intermittent fasting, or fasting in general, is the most powerful intervention I can teach anyone of my patients or anyone listening. Mm-hmm. It's that important. Why? Because we are not meant to be in a chronically fed state.
Yeah.
It messes up our hormones. When you're eating all the time frequently, especially when that food includes carbohydrates and sugars that are processed, spikes your insulin. Your hormone system goes on a roller coaster ride. Insulin goes up, that changes ghrelin, leptin, and a slew of other hormone levels. That affects your mood, your energy, and your body's ability to metabolize. Mm-hmm. If you're chronically eating all the time, especially with sugar, you're constantly dependent on carbs. There's this concept of carb dependency. And you downregulate the enzymes to burn fat. Burning fat is your body's sort of more optimal way of creating energy. You burn fat, you create ketones. Everyone knows about ketosis now. Mm-hmm. You create ketones, and your body uses that as energy. That is, for the most part, a better source of energy. Your brain operates more clearly on it. And then people will... immediately I know people are thinking, oh, what about your blood sugar? Your liver makes sugar. It's called gluconeogenesis. You can make sugar. Your body is a robust system that maintains your pH, your acid-base balance. It maintains your blood sugars. As long as you feed it the right things. Now, when you're eating all the time, you put your body's hormone system completely out of whack. You're chronically in a fed state, so your gut never has a chance to clear itself and heal. On a cellular level, your mitochondria, which are the batteries inside of your cells, and a lot of people are hearing about mitochondrial health, and you'll hear about it because, again, it's a driver of so much of the chronic disease. Your mitochondria start degrading in your cells, and they're not able to go through something called autophagy.
Is that because they're working nonstop?
Yeah, they're in this fed state. They're like constantly, and so they never get to recycle. There's no reset. People talk about these like fasts or like cleanses. The best cleanses are fasts, and it really does reset you. It resets you on a cellular level. It resets your gut. And through those processes, it resets your hormone system and your mood and your brain, and it gives you clarity.
Yeah.
If you hope to, and sorry if I'm jumping around, but I'm trying to give like key points. If you hope to burn the fat on your legs or on your belly, your body has to be ready to burn that fat.
Because now, if you're ingesting carbohydrates, like a high level of carbohydrates, your body will burn through the carbs first, right?
It's like a path of least resistance.
Okay.
Also,
so it's easier for your body to burn carbs than it is to burn fat.
Easier, it's like not the best word, but yeah, it's like a path of, if you don't burn those carbs, you have high blood sugar. Sugar in your blood is poisonous.
Oh, so that's
it's
why
poisonous.
Okay, so your body can recognize, I have a bunch of carbs in me, and I have to burn through these carbs so that my blood sugar doesn't spike through the roof, and I don't go like
and
septic
poison my
or
shit.
whatever.
Yeah, and furthermore, we didn't. You got to also step back into that evolutionary perspective. You've got to realize that our bodies are hunter-gatherers. We've only been living in a agricultural society for a few thousand years, which is like a blip on the radar of human evolution.
Well, even less though, right? Because the agricultural revolution wasn't until 200 years ago?
No, I'm saying we've been like growing plants and 10,000 years. We're talking like 10,000 years. We've been something in that range that we've been like having access.
Huge farms.
That's where the obesity epidemic comes. Is now we're processing the grains, right?
Right.
So there's so much to this, but like it's not just grains are bad, right? If you ferment grains, if you have them pre-digested by nature, like fermented sourdough bread, it takes a really long time to make. It's super delicious, and it gets rid of this huge glycemic load, and it actually gives your body access to a lot of the nutrition. For people listening that are interested, Dr. Bill Schindler is this brilliant anthropologist, and he's so eloquent talking about this specifically, how it's not about plants or animals or grains, it's about how you eat them, how they're processed. And for sure, humans are evolved to process our food on some level, cooking it, fermenting it, like dairy. Fermented dairy is really great for you, But yeah, so it's more complicated than someone saying meat's bad for you, veggies are good for you, this is bad, sugar's bad. It's a complicated system that people need to invest themselves into, because nutrition is the anchor, the heart of human health. And just listening to a guru or seeing your most recent article or going to the store and seeing what they're labeling as healthy, it's not enough.
Yeah.
We need to like invest in our nutrition so that we're healthy. So I'm jumping all over the place, but basically fasting gives your body the ability to heal itself on a multitude of levels, most importantly on a cellular level and on a hormonal level. And the evidence is coming. When I went to school, which is not a long time ago, right? I've been out of residency for 4 years. They still vilified fasting and ketosis.
Really?
When I started making these recommendations, I was still at the hospital. And I have multiple doctors come up to me and tell me it's dangerous. And I said, no, it's not dangerous if you have a brain. What's dangerous is giving people 10 or 20 drugs and counting on them to take them right, and counting on them to come back and like alter and like pretending that a human being should be on 10 or 20 drugs to be healthy. That's the fantasy. That's the made up illusion of the last 100 years of evidence-based and Western medicine. And again, it has a role. We could get into the Flexner reports and where Western medicine has its roots, and we're certainly good at, emergency medicine and saving people's lives, from injuries and even treating some cancers, right? But we are terrible at human health.
Yeah.
Like, we can't make people healthy. All of my older doctor colleagues or people that continue to follow these old-timey recommendations, their patients get sicker every year. It's not good diabetes management when every year or two you get a new drug.
Yeah.
That's not managing diabetes. That's called being addicted to drugs, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't start patients on insulin anymore, for example. I don't care what your A1C is. It's not good for you. Unless they're type 1 diabetics. It's different. It's different.
Well, let me hit fasting on one more thing, because that's something I've been really interested in. I've never done a long period of fasting, but I do intermittent fasting a couple days a week, or at the very least time restricted eating. So I don't eat like 3 hours before I go to bed is usually the latest I'll have my last bite of food, but I try to do earlier.
Good rule of thumb.
And then when I wake up, I have to eat as soon as I work out, and I usually work out about an hour after I wake up. So there's like a 10-hour
eat before or after you work out?
After.
Yeah.
I usually
fasted workouts are better.
I do a fasted workout. The first thing I do as soon as I wake up is I chug an entire bottle of water. Right away, as soon as I roll out of bed. That's the very first thing I do. But I think a lot of people get thrown off of intermittent fasting, or they're intimidated by it because they feel like they have to force themselves not to eat. And that's not the whole thing. It's more of a window where you still are eating, and
plenty of delicious
You're eating
food.
Your entire day's worth of food, more or less. But it's a window, and you really aren't starving yourself outside of that window. It's more like you're just recharging your batteries. And so is there a general rule of thumb for people who want to start intermittent fasting or give it a shot on like what hourly window that should be during the day and how many times a week that should happen?
One disclaimer is, just because a lot of people are listening, I don't want
no advice. This is
no.
advice.
It's not medical advice,
Not medical
but
advice.
more than that, this is not medical advice.
It's all opinions.
Yeah, well, if you come and be my patient, it will be medical
It'll
advice.
be-
But
yeah.
my point about it is, you should never do a dramatic dietary change of any kind without some kind of supervision from someone who knows what the heck they're doing.
Sure.
It's just not safe.
Right.
Like, I've realized people are misunderstanding simple things like, you need salt. They're like, salt's bad for you. No, you need salt.
Yeah.
If you eat a bunch of shitty processed food, there's so much salt in it that, they made the recommendations, don't eat salt, because we're feeding you all the salt already. But like, a lot of people struggle because they cut out salt from their diet completely, and they're mineral deficient, and that will make you really sick. If you're fasting, you need so get someone to supervise you.
Yeah.
Reach out to me, reach out to other doctors that are like-minded, nutritionists, health coaches. There's a lot of people. So that's the first thing. The way I describe it to my patients is a 16-8 method should be the new baseline. The way that we recommend 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, should be 16-8. You pick an 8-hour window of time during which you eat calories. The rest of the time, stay hydrated. Water, tea, even coffee's okay. But no calories. Let your body digest what it has. Let your cells recover. Let yourself recover. Don't be... Now, to do that successfully is the tricky part. Right. And so, most people, their window is like 12 to 8. Some people who have like more control of their life, because a lot of it has to do with work, work. But I actually like, the idea of eating more like 10 to 4 or 5. But that tends to be really tricky for people.
Yeah.
So I always say more like a lunch dinner sort of window.
Yeah.
And if you could narrow that window down even more, that's even better. You really get a lot of the benefits of fasting at that 12, 13, 14, 15-hour window. And then when we talk about extended fast, there's even more powerful, like when we talk about autophagy and healing your mitochondria, that really gets fired up after like 2 or 3 days. It's a different conversation. But for general people, to be successful at that strategy is the tricky part.
Yeah.
So if you're eating carbs, like if you break your fast with carbs, you're screwed.
You're fucked.
You're fucked. Your insulin spikes, it crashes, you feel
Yeah.
like shit, you have to eat again. Now you're on a yo-yo all day, right?
Yeah.
So you can't fast successfully and eat a bunch of processed shit.
Right.
So that's one thing. Two, like you were mentioning with the water, when you sleep, you get dehydrated. Your body loses water while you're breathing and just sleeping. Most people think they're hungry in the morning. They're thirsty, and they're mineral deficient. So I always talk about like a morning elixir, which is a little bit of real salt, like a Himalayan sea salt or Redmond's real salt or sea salt, something like that. Like a little bit, half a teaspoon in a big glass of water, maybe a little lemon juice for flavor, maybe a magnesium supplement because our nutrition is pretty poor in magnesium. That's breakfast, right? And then you can have your coffee and get on with your day.
Sure. I don't think people drink enough water anyways, dude. I've been telling my mom and my sister every single time I see them, or even just I'm with friends and I see my friend, I'm out eating with friends and I see my friend eating his whole meal and he hasn't taken one sip of water yet. And I'm like, dude, that's not good for you. You have to drink water. I think a lot of people's issues would be solved just with water. And I am not a doctor at all, but I only speak from personal experience. When I started drinking, and when I started becoming conscious of the amount of water that I was drinking per day, I felt I had more energy. A fog lifted. It lifted even more when I cut carbs way down, which was huge. But just like my skin was healthier, my acne cleared up. I could work out longer. I could work out harder, and it was all from drinking water. And I think a lot of people are lacking that too.
You're made out of water.
Yeah.
So it's comes back to the whole cholesterol fat thing. If you're mostly made out of protein, fat, and water, and you don't eat enough protein, fat, and water,
right?
Because you're only eating plants and grains and processed shit, and then soda or juice, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And then you add to that not going out in the sun, developing a hormone deficiency, vitamin D deficiency.
Now, what do you think about the lockdown now, kind of forcing people to stay inside and not going out into the sun? Isn't that just a terrible feedback loop?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's ridiculous.
Just the
I
fact
think it's
that
ridiculous.
it wasn't like, hey, stay inside, but make sure you go outside for a 30-minute walk a day so that you can get some vitamin D. That feels like it would have been a smart thing to say if we have to be on lockdown at all. But I haven't heard one politician or news media or anybody say, hey, make sure you're getting vitamin D and you're going outside because it helps your immune system.
It's all just fear mongering.
Yeah.
It's be afraid to go outside. Be afraid of thy neighbor. Be afraid of someone not wearing a mask. Be afraid of taking a medicine that might or might not help you. Be afraid to go to work. It's all fear mongering. It's very familiar to me because medical school was all fear mongering. Residency was all fear mongering. Working in the hospital was all fear mongering. Everything is be afraid. Listen to what we're telling you. And my whole thing with this, I don't really want to get into what I think the recommendation should be because I think that's a little bit tricky.
Sure.
I think that we need to.
You mean regarding
the lockdown and stuff? Yeah, I mean, I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a public health official, but we need to encourage humans to think for themselves, make their own decisions, use multiple resources, not be so linear in their thinking, and I would like to see more openness to dissenting opinion. It doesn't mean you have to break the rules. If I, for example, and I'm not saying this, but if I say I don't think we should wear masks, I shouldn't get my ass reamed out and be talked shit upon, which is happening to people.
Yeah.
You get to have an opinion. And it should be let's have a discussion about it. Not
that's what the response should be. Dude, people are just so quick to jump onto a team. That it feels like everybody just wants to be on a team so that they can go against the other team because their team is right. And there's no room when you choose sides for discussion. I mean, that's why Twitter is a nightmare. That's why I try to stay off Twitter as much as I can. But the lack of conversation has been pretty daunting.
And I worry a lot of it is just politicizing the issue, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of people who take their opinions one way or the other just either hate Trump or love Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does Trump have to do with COVID?
Right.
He didn't make COVID. Like, a unnatural world made COVID. Whether you believe or we don't know, but whether it was in a lab because we were doing tests trying to figure something out and someone screwed up, who knows? Or it was in a wet market because that shit's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, we live in an unnatural world. And instead of stepping back and saying, holy shit, it caught up to us, we just created a beast of a virus, which may or may not be quite as beastly as we thought in the first place. But again, not the point.
Yeah.
Instead of stepping back and saying, what can we do better? It's bandages, right?
Yeah.
So let me make the analogy to like our diabetes and obesity epidemic. It's instead of stepping back and saying like, how did we give these people diabetes? How did diabetes become a thing? It's like, no, we're going to treat it. We're going to put a bandage on it. Here's a drug that makes your number look better. That's what masks are to me. That's what discussions about hydroxychloroquine are to me. Mm-hmm. That's what arguments about vaccinations are to me. They're bandages. Even a vaccine is not a definitive answer. Like, we have the flu vaccine and a lot of people die from the flu. Like, a lot of people die from the flu.
Yeah.
So the solution is accepting human nature. And human nature is, if you're sick, you have a higher likelihood of dying. If you don't want to be sick, you need to change your life. Mm-hmm. The fantasy is, I'm going to sit on my couch, eat my fast food, not drink water, not take care of myself, not move my body, not get sun exposure, do nothing for stress management, not focus on healthy sleep hygiene, and these pills are going to save my life. That's a fantasy.
Yeah.
Like, and so with everyone worried about like, oh, we got to stay in to save even one life. No, we need to be real with ourselves. People are going to die. We need to accept that. We've done a good job with social distancing. That's helping. But we've only just begun. If we're going to do something about this, we haven't even really begun. Like, we need to change how people live their lives. And whatever that costs, if we have to change our food system around, if we have to
change the textbooks, dude.
Yeah, we got to do it, man.
Got to change the textbooks, dude. I remember learning about the food pyramid when I was a kid and just growing up, and the whole, if you guys remember the food pyramid, I'm only 17 years old right now, so this wasn't that long ago, but the food pyramid when I was a young kid, the whole bottom was carbs. It was carbohydrates, breads, grains, rice, noodles,
Where the fuck did that come from?
Dude, and then they changed it. I don't know. I forget what it is now.
They do
but
a
now
plate now.
It's a plate.
It's the same shit, but in a plate format.
Yeah.
They rebranded.
They rebranded the
rebranded
pyramid, made it a plate, and they made like a guy running on it or something.
Yeah.
But I remember that, and I remember when I was growing up, dude, and just eating anything I wanted. I mean, I would be 7 years old after a soccer practice begging my mom to stop through McDonald's so I get chicken nuggets. And like, Mom, thanks for getting me chicken nuggets because they were delicious. For sure. But I could never imagine the day I have kids getting my kids chicken nuggets after basketball practice. You know what I mean? They're going to have a protein shake with some collagen and vitamin C.
There you go.
Okay?
So, or bone broth, even
bone
better.
Broth.
Ooh,
I had a full cup of bone broth before you came over, dude. I'm making bone broth once a week. It is delicious.
Although I've been seeing you fuck with that pasta.
Oh, dude. Well, that's the thing. I was gonna bring that up next, bro. That's the thing, dude. Is like I made pasta when I was a kid with my mom, and my whole family's Italian, so I was like raised on noodles, And I love making it, and I love eating it, and I got way more into it during the lockdown, just because I'm bored, and it's been like so fun to just like
it's very like soothing to make.
It's soothing, it's meditative. You can open that. It's totally fine. You're good. If you pull it to the right, it'll be a little easier, but you're good. No worries. No problem. It is hot.
You're hot. Hey.
So I started making pasta like during lockdown more than I ever had, but I balanced it by not eating carbs with any other meal during the day. Now that's literally just been during lockdown. Before the lockdown, I was meat and greens, and I've been vegan for like a week here or there. I've been vegetarian for like 2 weeks. I've been on like a journey for the past 6 years, which will probably continue for the rest of my life, as I think it should with most people, because as your body evolves, you should also evolve your eating habits.
New information comes to light.
New information, right. So I've been vegan for like a week or two. I've been vegetarian for a couple of weeks at a time. But I've never felt better than when I do minimal carb, high protein, high greens, where the protein is 60-70% of the daily intake, and the greens and the veggies.
What kind of protein? We're talking like an animal protein.
Animal protein, yeah.
But not chicken breast.
No, actually, no.
Yeah. I'm saying there's some fat to go with your protein.
Yes.
So that's the thing that I think people don't realize is if it's just chicken breast or it's just extremely lean meat, it's more difficult. Your protein needs to come with a little bit of fat because your body can only get energy from fat or carbs. Protein is not a good energy source. There's something called rabbit starvation. Like during the Lewis and Clark days, the hunters would get stuck out there in the woods and all they can get is rabbit. You die because you can't just eat protein.
Right.
A protein is a building block for your body. But that's why I always say like dark meat chicken with the skin.
Oh, okay.
Steak.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be like all the fat, but a good healthy amount of fat is a key to what you're describing.
No, it's funny. I've been like naturally not eating chicken breast for a while, and I didn't even think of it. But maybe it's because
It's bullshit.
Maybe it's because just intrinsically my body is like,
you feel
don't eat
it. But by the way, you're describing probably the most important principles, which is everyone's different, and you need to feel yourself, and you need to be present, and you need to like pay attention. And if you eat some shitty food and you feel shitty, make the connection and make the change. Yeah. And then also like change it up. I don't eat the same shit every day.
Yeah.
Have some pasta. Pasta's not inherently bad.
No,
but
the pasta I make is actually really fucking good. It's all egg yolks and one egg, and the flour is organic, and it's 00 Italian.
Yeah, you got
it's finely milled flour. It's very good. But I'm cutting pasta back to one night a week because I definitely, dude, I bulked up like when I was just eating pasta. I went to Italy with my family like 2 years ago, and I was out there for like 2 weeks, literally told myself no restrictions on diet. I was having cheese, bread, pasta, and I saw pictures of myself like last week from that trip. Dude, I looked like I was like running back for him. Dude.
Yeah,
I was beast. Yeah. But that's all water weight and just like the carbs and all.
And by the way, there's this concept of feasting and fasting, right?
Yeah.
Like you can eat a bunch of. I don't like to say like processed food, but you can liberalize your diet and go out there and have a good time, and then don't eat for a minute. Like, you know what I mean?
It back. It's balance, right? It's a balance. And everybody's body is different, which is why you see some endurance athletes and crazy people that are strict vegans, right? Not many, but
like 2.
Yes. Yeah.
There's like one guy that's famous and
what from the
I forget his name.
Documentary thing?
I don't know about the I forget. There's this guy Rich something, but he's like famously vegan and an endurance athlete. And like I always tell people, if you spend your whole life working to get that healthy fat and protein in your life, you can probably do it. Some people can do it. You can't do it without B vitamin supplementation because you can't absorb B vitamins from a vegan diet. So if you're okay eating a diet that requires you to supplement, cool. I'm trying to create a diet that I only have to supplement because our food system is so deplete of quality ingredients that I kind of have to get some magnesium. I can't spend quite a bit of as much time in the sun as I want, so I do the vitamin D. There's a couple other things that we could get into, but in reality, in my like dream brain, my dream world, I'm spending a couple hours in the sun doing some physical labor. I'm getting my body moving. I'm getting my vitamin D. I'm eating grass-fed, grass-finished, hooved animals.
Now, let me interrupt you there because that was a question I had. What does grass-finished mean? Grass-fed, obviously, they're free range and they eat grass.
It's a subtlety,
like food.
It's about labeling. Grass-fed means they can like feed it grass most of the time, and then there's a shorter period of time that they can feed it corn and fatten it up and get some fat on it before they slaughter it.
And that's before the end of the animals.
And that's actually most cows in America. Brian Sanders has a great podcast on this and like video presentation at Food Lies. It's a great resource, but basically most of our cows eat mostly grass anyway, and then it just depends on like how much corn they feed it at the end. And then organic means is that corn like GMO corn or not GMO corn. And I used to think that didn't matter. Oh, it matters.
It matters, dude.
Organic drops the poison, like the chemical amount. When it comes to grains, it means it's non-GMO corn. GMO corn is not good for you. It's made-up food, genetically modified organisms. Then with organic, generally, you don't have a Roundup on that, which is a chemical, what do you call it? When it kills, it keeps
the weed killer thing?
Yeah, weed killer thing.
Yeah.
And it has glyphosate in it. And glyphosate is this super poisonous chemical that kills bacterias, also then gets in our bodies and has all sorts of terrible effects on us.
So they spray that on the corn as they're growing it, but not if it's organic because the
Hopefully.
stipulations.
Yes.
We have to trust that.
We have to trust that, yeah. So people challenge that, and I'm like, look, you can get your own farm, and really, that's the only way you're going to control it
by
for
having
sure.
your own farm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's my dream. You know, I would love to have my own farm and raise my own animals, and I want to slaughter my own.
Grass finished.
Oh, and then grass finished basically says they never feed it corn.
Oh, okay.
So they never feed it corn.
So they finish it with grass.
So the animal eats a normal diet.
Yeah.
What is species specific for that animal?
Yeah.
And then they slaughter it, and you have high quality meat, high quality fat, minimal chemicals, and that's what we're after. We're after getting rid of the chemicals. We're after eating a species specific diet, and we're after mimicking our ancestral heritage or our.
Yeah, that's the phrase that I liked most when we were first starting to talk, is that you were really into ancestral nutrition, ancestral medicine, because humans evolved by eating meat. And I read an article that's true for them, right?
Yeah, not just that. I mean, again, you guys got to listen to Dr. Bill Schindler, but we really evolved. First we were mostly plant-based. We couldn't get animals. We're weak. Like, how am I going to kill an animal? I don't have claws. I don't have sharp teeth.
Sure.
I can't run very fast. I'm not very agile. So we foraged.
Right.
And those were our ancestors. And then eventually, we were playing with rocks, and someone chipped off a rock, and we got a piece of sharp stone. And now we have stone tools, and now we have access to more nutrients. So
yeah, and in that book *Sapiens*, right?
Yuval Harari, I love
bro.
that guy. The best. Life-changing book.
I'm like halfway through, but I love it. And he talked a little bit about how our diet played a big role in the evolutionary process of, I don't know, new neural pathways forming, and just your body developing the human body developing over the course of its evolution, thanks in large part to the evolution of our diet at the same time.
Ran parallel courses.
Yeah.
So I think about it, and just broad strokes is that stone tool gave us a way to access like things that we couldn't get into. And so with a stone tool, you can't really hunt an animal. Maybe you can get little guys. But what we can do is we can be scavengers. We can be scavenger carnivores. And there's a lot of fossil evidence to support this, is that we would wait until, a big kill would be made. There's a lot of hoofed animals on this planet, millions and thousands of years ago. The animals, the predatory animals would get most of the meat. They definitely first eat the liver, eat all the organs, because the organ meat is where most of the high quality nutrition is.
Yeah, that's really interesting that a lot of animals just instinctively will eat the organ meat.
All
first.
Predatory animals.
Yeah.
A bear takes the salmon, rips the liver out, eats
that's right. That's what I saw.
A wolf, they hunt in packs. The alpha gets the liver.
Yeah.
Hunter-gatherer cultures, they would butcher an animal. They take the liver, chop it up. Everyone in the tribe got a piece. The pancreas, the thyroid gland. That's how we got our nutrition.
Yeah.
Not through drugs and supplements, but by eating an animal nose to tail.
Right.
You eat an animal nose to tail, you get everything your body needs. The bone broth we were talking about. How do you access the calcium, the collagen in bones and ligaments? You boil it.
Yeah.
It extracts all the nutrients, and now you could eat it. So we had these tools. We'd go to these animals that were already dead, that kind of there's a carcass there. We take the long marrow bone, and with our stone tool, crack that shit. And the marrow is super nutritious.
That's the life source, dude.
And that gave us our first taste of animal nutrition. Then we figured out fire. We figured out hunting. And this is a longer story, but I'm just fire, hunting. By hunting, we got first access to the animal. That means we got the liver. We got the kidneys. Now we have even more nutrient-dense foods. But it's hard to digest raw meat. Fire helped us make it even more bioavailable.
Yeah.
And so we evolved over millions of years with our capabilities to manipulate the world around us. And that's what makes us human. You know, the use of tools, the use of science, but we lost our way.
Yeah.
We lost our way, and that's
because in the
where we're at.
50s, we're eating liver and onions.
Liver and onions,
you know,
was vilified when we were kids, right?
Yeah.
I used to watch Doug.
Oh, it was like
remember
made fun
Doug?
Of. Yeah.
Fucking Doug would like, and it anchored in a generation of children that liver and onions is nasty. Now I was blessed in a way I'm Russian, Russian Jewish guy, and I grew up eating like pashtet in Russian. It's pate, and my dad would just take
made of liver.
He would just boil livers,
Whoa.
add some seasonings, mash it up, and I ate that for breakfast. Red caviar, commonly ate it. Now we know it's extremely nutritious, full of all the healthy fats we need.
Now,
these foods that are vilified.
Right. Are you into the science behind like people's genetic predispositions to be able to eat certain foods more than others? Like people whose ancestors, because even just 2 or 3 generations ago, most Americans' families came from a different country. Like mine came from Italy 2 generations ago, and Ireland on my dad's side. So I find that even though when I eat a lot of pasta, it doesn't like hit me super, super, super badly. And I've always wondered if that's like a genetic predisposition or how true that
we don't
philosophy is.
I would answer it with we don't know. We're only getting into genomics and understanding how our genetics affect us. I think it's pretty obvious that different cultures have different carb tolerance.
Yeah.
Right? So different people have different carb tolerance depending on how metabolically damaged you are. So if you've been eating those carbs since you were a little kid, you never exercised, you never took care of yourself, your metabolism gets broken, and those carbs start really hurting you. And that's what develops chronic disease. If you're, like you're a fit guy, exercises, like fucking swolled out, bro.
Looks great.
Dude, bro. Just being a bro, by the way, so protects you. Like, hey, if you're listening and you're a bro, you're good, dude. Eat whatever the fuck you want to eat.
Just keep chugging Locos, dude.
Yeah, natty ice, bro. That shit made me laugh because in the fraternity days, man, natty ice was the shit.
Oh, you get it, dude. Oh, yeah. We were buying natties and Keystones.
Kegs of natty, and you're just like on the roof.
Oh, my God.
Natty.
Oh, totally. Even in high school, like at high school parties, we were filling kegs with like natty ice.
Edward beer hands or whatever.
Edward 40 hands.
40 hands.
Yep, with the Mickeys.
Yeah, that was a nightmare. But so yeah, I think that there's genetic variability, but I say that with caution because I think that, a couple hundred years ago, nothing changes on a genetic level, on a gut microbiome level over hundreds of years. We are the same animals we've been for the last couple 100,000 years.
Yeah.
If anything, it's the epigenetics that's a more interesting factor. So you're a guy who thinks positively about themselves, surrounds themselves with positive people, exercises, does creative things. They're not just fun. They affect our genetics. We know that our environment, the energy around us, the people that surround us, changes the way our body then expresses genes. So I think probably that has more factor in individual variability of like dietary tolerance, right? And then this concept of metabolic damage, right? Like if you're really, really healthy and you're fasting all the time and you're not consuming a lot of poisonous foods, your metabolism is flexible. That's what I would describe what you're experiencing. You have metabolic flexibility.
Okay.
You can go into a
That's why I can eat a pint of ice cream on a Sunday night and not feel terrible the next day.
Yeah, but do it 3 nights in a row and you'll feel like shit.
Well, maybe
like
4.
there's only
I've done
4.
3.
Okay. Yeah, I think, and everyone's different.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's like you're Italian and I'm Russian, and
just
you know, I don't know if it's that much
of people whose ancestors come from places who had like a diet heavy in fish, you know, and then I'm just curious.
What ancestors? Like what ancestors? Your Italian heritage is a couple hundred years old. Like eating processed grains on the levels that we're eating now is not.
It's probably bad for anybody, no matter what.
And it's only a couple hundred years old. We're not adjusted to it. Hey, by the way, everyone talks about a Mediterranean diet being healthy, right? Why does Italy have such a high death rate?
Right.
Because they have a lot of obese smokers and elderly. Mm-hmm. They're not healthy. That's why. Yeah. So if everyone's eating a fucking Mediterranean diet and they're so healthy, then no, it's exposed. That's why I think people are afraid to talk about this, because it's like shining a light on the ugly side of our culture.
Yeah.
And that's that you don't get to be fat and healthy. That's not real. I'm not fat shaming people. I'm giving them the reality. You want to die from the flu? Have a BMI greater than 40 and you'll die from the flu. Mm-hmm. Your body can't handle infection because your immune system is struggling. Mm-hmm. Like, that's it. And it's not about we're talking about these microscopic things like carbs and fasting and this and that. And they're all important, but it's this greater picture of what is a human being's life supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And it's not the shit that's sold to us.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's what I want people to question what is sold to you. You know? Don't just take a recommendation because it has some fancy letters organization supporting it as fact. Mm-hmm. You know, don't just because a new study came out, don't just accept it. Do your due diligence and pursue resources that you trust. And oftentimes those are not major news outlets.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is. And that's the tricky part. Is we're living a war of information. Like, how many podcasts are out there?
Yeah.
You know, I connected with you. I was telling Brent earlier that, me and my fiance saw his videos and your videos, and it was so like, it hit so close to home. And so I knew immediately, like, I could like listen to you. And as I started following you, it's no surprise we have a lot of common revelations or commonalities in how we live our lives. So I want people to lean into that. You want to be healthy? Go find a bunch of people that are healthy and watch what they're doing.
See what they're doing and test it for yourself. Dude, that's been the biggest part of like my health journey over the years, is trying to figure out what will work for me, what won't, pretty much what will let me play basketball until I'm 60.
Yeah.
That's literally
70.
Are
you a shooter? You could play even longer.
I can play any position, baby.
Oh shit!
You put me on the court, dude.
Fucker's
I'll play any
versatile.
position, dude. 1 through 5. But that's real. Like I want to be running up and down a court when I'm 60 years old without having to stop because I pulled a back muscle. And you know, I slipped a vertebrae when I was 15, going through a growth spurt. I've fractured my ankle. I've sprained every joint in my body, but it's been like a process of figuring out why those injuries happen, how they happen, how I can prevent them from ever happening again, and making those injured parts of my body the strongest. And through that whole journey, I've found what I think is best for me. And I don't think what's best for me is best for everybody. I think everybody does have their own thing. But I do believe in a couple of general practices, like lots of water or lower carb. Try it out. Just give it a shot, you know? And I see like people that do the carnivore diet, which is hilarious.
It's fun.
It's as funny as people who do the vegan diet.
It's a necessary evil, though.
Oh, 100%.
I don't think it's evil, but I'm just saying like it's a counterpoint.
I did the carnivore diet for a week. I only did meat and eggs and protein powder. That's all I did for a week.
What's with the protein powder?
Protein powder is just easy.
Just love it because
it's just easy. It's so
dude,
quick.
bro.
Yeah, I'm a bro, dude.
Dude, bro.
I'm a bro. I gotta have my shaker, dude.
Yeah.
I gotta have my. I gotta be shaking.
Throw some eggs in the microwave, bro. I used to do that shit all the time.
Gross,
yeah, I used to do that shit.
But the carnivore diet, when I first heard about it, I remember I was working an assistant job on a commercial, and working on these sets, you have like big catering companies that give everybody lunch, right? So lunch hit, and everybody went on break, and I went to go sit down next to my buddy who was a PA with me, and on my plate I had my meat, I had my bread, I had my salad. This was like 6 years ago, maybe less, maybe like 4 years ago. And my buddy came over, and he sat down, and on his plate were like 5 steaks and 3 pieces of fish. And I was like, is that your lunch, dude? And he was like, yeah, I'm doing the carnivore diet. And I thought he was joking, so I laughed. I was like, yeah, all right, for sure. What are you going to do, eat people? I didn't know what the hell it was.
Yeah.
And he was like, nah, dude, like Joe Rogan said, dude, carnivore diet is life.
Famous Sean Baker episode.
Sean Baker's
Sean
the one,
Baker.
right.
He's a good guy.
He brought
Big fan of Sean.
into the mainstream. And I started looking into it more, and I thought it was super interesting. And then since I had tried the vegan diet for a couple of weeks, I was like, why not flip the script and try the carnivore diet? And then I made the carnivore diet video, what Sean Baker actually reposted, which was hilarious.
Yeah. I think that's probably how it came across our eyes.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Right on. Which was super cool because you don't see a lot of vegan people having a sense of humility about themselves. They seem to be a little more strict as far as like viewing meat.
Because it's rooted in a different
philosophy, which is totally understandable. But I liked how Sean reposted the video and thought it was funny and all that. But the diet that I've been doing, which is mostly meat and greens and a lot of mushrooms. I ate a lot of mushrooms, and we'll get into more mushroom stuff in a bit. But the inflammation has gone down. The recovery is easier. You know, my joints pop less. You know, so and it might not be for everybody. I have friends that are vegan and say they feel great. We'll see how they are 30 years from now if they keep it up. But I do think that people should be more open-minded, and like the way I was when I heard carnivore diet and laughed. But then I was like, oh, let me check it out a little bit, because it's not right for everybody.
I think of carnivore diet as a tool.
Yeah.
It's a tool to heal your metabolism. It's a tool to reset yourself. It's a tool to teach the public that meat, and red meat especially, is not bad for you, because that's one of these misinformation or like kind of like concepts that is just bullshit. And with my Sapien diet and lifestyle program, we think about it as a framework that contains within it carnivore diet, pescatarian diet, Whole30. There's a slew of, different diets. The only one that it doesn't, and even vegetarian, by the way, as long as you're getting that healthy fat and protein and you're thoughtful about it. And I'm not here to shit on veganism, but I don't think vegan diet is a human diet. I think that most vegan people want the same exact thing that everyone wants, which is to eat healthy in a sustainable way, to show respect to our animals. And I think that where they're misled is to think that we are somehow abusing animals by eating them. That's a huge, there's a huge break in like the thought process. We are intertwined with animals. You are not even your own, you are full of bacteria and viruses. You are like your own ecosystem.
Yeah, aren't you walking around with like 10 viruses
all the time,
any given day?
All the time.
Yeah.
Most people already have CMV. Like 70 or 80% of people are infected with CMV, cytomegalovirus. If you're healthy, it's just like in you. Herpes, a lot of people have herpes.
Yeah.
Your body can manage it. You live in this living world. And it's only when you disconnect yourself from that world that disease starts to happen and imbalances start to happen. If you don't consume food that nurtures a healthy gut microbiome, and that's from your mouth to your small intestine, your stomach, to your colon, you can't operate on the highest level. Those mechanisms drive inflammation. Inflammation is the heart of a lot of these diseases. Coronary artery disease is inflammation of the blood vessels in your heart. And to protect your blood vessels, your body tries to put a Band-Aid on it called cholesterol plaques, fat plaques. The plaques aren't hurting you. They're bandaging this inflammation. Inflammatory bowel disease, is inflammation of your gut linings, inflammation of your thyroid, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, asthma and reactive airway disease, inflammation of air. These are all the same processes. In medicine, we try to break them apart as different diseases. We go even further. We make a doctor only think about the colon, like a GI doctor, lung doctor, only think about asthma. They're all the same thing. They're an inflammatory process of your body struggling to keep up with a lifestyle that's not working for you.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the biggest arguments that I've heard from people who are vegan and people who are not on the side of an entirely meat-based diet, which is one of the arguments that it definitely makes a point, is the factory farming system and its effect on the environment, and how do we live have a sustainable ecosystem of eating meat without factory farming. And is that even possible? I mean, neither of us are economists or in that field, but
I have an answer to that.
Oh, hit me,
I
bro.
really do.
Hit me, dude.
Like, by not eating meat does not get rid of factory farms. Like, you are not bypassing a shitty food system by not eating meat. In fact, what happens is you end up eating a lot of processed grains, carbohydrates, vegetables that are covered in pesticides, like the glyphosate Roundup that we talked about, and you actually end up putting more shit into your body and creating more metabolic damage. The more intelligent thing, or the more, maybe not intelligent, the more thoughtful way of going about this is using your dollars to buy sustainably grown and thoughtfully generated foods, like grass-fed, grass-finished, local farmers. And that's one of the silver linings, at least what right now that's happening with this COVID situation, is as these factory farms struggle to maintain themselves because they're cesspools for infection, right? That's why all these workers are sick.
That's true. There are some crazy numbers from slaughterhouses with the majority of workers having caught coronavirus.
Because it's a gross environment. But what we're seeing, though, is there's a huge boom in people buying from local farmers.
Yeah.
And that's the solution. Instead of having a couple thousand massive corporate-owned farms that produce the majority of the meat, we need to have hundreds of thousands of smaller regional farms. And we have the technology to connect all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's not like we're all disconnected. We can connect people to local farmers, so it's better for our planet because you're not shipping meat from New Zealand. Like, it's cheaper for me to get grass-fed meat from New Zealand. That means we're fucked up.
That's
like,
crazy.
that's some shit,
That's
right?
Crazy,
that's some fucked
dude.
up shit. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But the point would be that, we are seeing a huge boom in local purchasing of meat. And I want to make another reference. Joel Salatin is a farmer. He owns Polymath Farm, something like that. He just did an episode of Joe Rogan, our favorite guy.
How many guys take a drink every time we mention Joe Rogan on this podcast? You should be up to 4 by now.
Dude, Joe's a powerhouse. He's
of course.
He's, people that, you mock him with your things, but it's
because
it's true. Yeah, because
I love him.
He's letting people hear a different opinion, I've had this thought. I haven't shared it with anyone. I love Howard Stern.
Yeah.
He's fucking great interviewer, super funny, but he's an older guy.
Yeah.
And he just promotes these archaic food systems, plant-based meat, plant-based this, fiber, which is archaic thinking.
Can you talk about fiber real quick?
Oh my god!
Because that was another thing that I've been reading about lately.
Let me finish the idea really quick.
And then give me 10 seconds on fiber.
Joe is one of the few people that is promoting alternative thinking about your health, and I just wish that guys like Stern and guys with even more reach would talk to younger people, or more open-minded people, or people that are really on the front lines of this nutrition world, and not just be anchored in archaic ideas. Mm-hmm. I say that because I see a parallel, like even with Joe Rogan going, he's going to Spotify now. Yeah. So that's he's just doing what Stern did from radio, right? Stern went from radio to XM.
Right.
That was a great move for him. Now Joe's sort of following the pattern. So I see a pattern. I see a parallel there, and why I really think Joe Rogan will be looked back as like a cultural phenomenon, like a cultural shift, is it gave guys like us an outlet to see and hear about new ideas. And it's so fucking important, because this idea that we had everything figured out in the 50s and 60s is bullshit. Like, we need to grow and evolve. And I love that we talk about Joe Rogan, because he really changed my life. And I think a lot of people
he did, and he did it in a way of spotlighting other people and, and bringing other people to your attention. Because him as a person, he's great. And, say what you want about whether you believe in the same things that he believes in, but you have to believe in his ability and effort to bring people to the forefront, to put people on a stage that they wouldn't have otherwise, like Dr. Rhonda Patrick or other people like that. And he doesn't he doesn't interrupt. That's the coolest part. He
lets them say their shit.
He lets them talk. He lets them go. So that's always been really cool, and that's helped open people's minds. And I think that's also what podcasting does too, because it's so easy. I mean, I set this up in like 10 minutes.
That's great.
And moving away from the archaic ideas, which is cool because it brings us closer to this topic that I really wanted to talk to you about. But before we get there, I want to talk about fiber, dude, because fiber is I've heard it described as like a myth. Yeah. One of the biggest myths that we were ever taught is that you need tons of fiber in your diet. But then you see dudes like Sean Baker, Carnivore Diet guy, who's 50 plus years old,
savage,
swole as fuck, dude. The guy is.
He's the bro.
His abs have
bro.
Abs. Yeah, he's like the bro father, dude. He's insane.
Bro father.
And how that guy poops, I have no idea, because he's only eating meat. I'll tell you what, dude, and I don't think we talk about poop enough, and I say this in my act too, but
let's talk about feces,
dude,
bro.
Poop. You guys, I hope everybody listening is having at least 3 poops a day, dude. At the very least, dude, because your boy is pooping out 4 or 5 times a day.
Because you're eating all those greens, bro.
I'm eating all those greens, dude. I'm pooping mushrooms, dude. Whole mushrooms coming out of my butt, dude. It feels really good.
Whole mushroom. Your gut's got some fucking problems, bro.
No, dude, that's good, dude. That means my gut biome is so good. It's like a forest in there.
They just like
I got
cradle
little enchanted creatures in there.
Cradles the shroom as it comes through your body.
Yeah, as it goes out and it just lets it go. A little wizard in my butthole.
I'm envisioning the shroom.
But like that's real, right? Like I don't know the science behind fiber.
Have you ever like gotten constipated by eating the fiber and not drinking enough water? Because I see that shit all the time.
That's a huge part of.
That's why you have to drink so much water.
Is a huge part of.
They go together.
Yeah.
So really quick, fiber is tricky. I think we need some fiber. Some people don't need a lot of fiber. What we don't need is 8 servings of fiber like we recommend currently. Mm-hmm. Those ideas came from a guy named Dennis Burkitt, who is a brilliant doctor. Again, I think like 100 years ago. Burkitt's lymphoma, people may have heard of. It's like he discovered a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
He went to, I think it was Madagascar or something, and did some observational research and saw that, hey, these people eat a lot of fiber and they have like a low incidence of colon cancer. I can't remember the details, but he made an observation and he was venerated as like this brilliant man. His observations turned into recommendations sort of over the years. The research on fiber is mixed. There's epidemiological evidence. Epidemiological evidence is like questionnaire data. It's not real. It's not the best science. It's not conclusive. Mm-hmm. It suggests something. It's great for hypothesis generation. It's not great for confirmation. Then there's a ton of research that says high fiber diets actually increase the incidence of diverticulosis. They certainly do not decrease your risk of precancerous lesion formation, which is something that was promoted to me in medical school, and the evidence doesn't suggest that it prevents cancer at all. In fact, it suggests that it causes more constipation and bloating. So I do not recommend consuming fiber like it's going to make you healthy. I don't think it's healthy for you. It's not unhealthy. It certainly puts bulk in your stool. Mm-hmm. One caveat to that is if you're not drinking a shit ton of water, you get constipated. So many of my elderly patients are on multiple laxatives and on fiber, and they don't drink enough water. And the recommendation for constipation is have a higher fiber diet, and that drives this whole process. So I oftentimes with my elderly patients that have been going through this for decades and decades, I'd be like, stop the Metamucil, stop the salads, get rid of the fiber. All of a sudden, they start pooping normally. Because it's hard to drink as much water as you're suggesting.
Yeah.
So I think maybe an observation I'm making about you is that your high consumption of greens puts a high amount of fiber in your system that demands more water so you don't become more constipated.
Sure.
And that perhaps if you decrease the amount of fiber, you wouldn't be so dependent on the water. That's a fun way to think about it. So I guess the conclusion is the recommendations for fiber are not really supported by great evidence. And now you've got these carnivore people suggesting that you don't need any fiber.
You don't need any of it. Yeah, because some of the carnivore people are literally just eating meat and eggs.
I'd love to see some research being done on it, and I know there's some that's currently ongoing, and I think we'll learn a lot more about this stuff now with sort of doctors like me and a lot Rhonda Patrick and these other researchers that are really diving into a lot of these ideas. But I don't think fiber is an essential part of like your diet. At least not in the way that we were taught. I don't think you need to shit 3 times a day. I think if you eat a carnivore diet, you might shit once a day. But I also say this with the caveat is sometimes you should eat fiber and sometimes you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And you should eat seasonally. And sometimes you should eat sweet fruit because it's available in season. But in December, you shouldn't eat oranges and apples and mangoes because they were shipped in from God knows where. And you're not supposed to eat this shit all the time.
Right. And do you think the way our bodies, the way we evolved, has a big part of eating seasonally? Because our bodies are just not adapted to eat certain things in certain seasons?
Yeah, and you might be able to tolerate a bunch of sweet fruit for a month or two. But if you do it 12 months out of the year, for years and years and years, you'll develop diabetes and fatty liver disease. And, a diet high in veggies and fruits is not a healthy diet. A diet that's high in nutrient-dense foods. Right. That is a healthy diet. Yeah. So whether that's a vegan, like some of these people that spend all day working really hard to make sure they consume enough healthy nut butters and avocados, and you can do it. It's a ton of effort. You also probably have to supplement, or it's a carnivore, or it's someone who's eating nose to tail. Right? Someone who's really focused on getting that liver and getting that bone broth. I think they're all sound, but sound approaches. And I think everyone should try it all out and see what works for them.
Do you have any information off the top of your head about eating seasonally and what that looks like? Like as far as types of foods, or is there any?
It depends on where you live.
Where would someone go if they wanted to know like what's best to eat like as far as? All right, let me back up. I'm a huge Tom Brady fan. Yeah. Okay. And
you heard that Howard Stern episode?
Well, I've just followed I've read about his diet and nutrition plan for years. I've never implemented it, but I take bits and pieces from different places and incorporate it into my own life. And I've seen him and even other athletes talk about eating seasonally, whether that's only a specific type of red meat during a specific couple of months of the year, or a specific type of vegetable never during this time of the year because it should only be eaten during this time of the year. And I've always been curious, what the specifics are behind all that.
Depends on where you live.
Yeah.
Depends on what's available to you. Depends on what you're after.
Yeah.
I mean, my guess is Tom Brady's nutritional demands are different than yours or mine.
No, they're the same.
No,
they're the same.
Okay, fine.
I have the same nutritional demands as the greatest quarterback of all time.
Maybe the best. Yeah, I mean, look, I think people are looking for a one-line answer when it comes to nutrition. And I just don't think that, there is no one line. There is educating yourself, and then there's experimenting, and then there's optimizing, and then there's finding a good doctor or a nutritionist or a dietitian or a health coach and creating your own plan. And then, like you said, changing that plan as you change.
Yeah, evolve as your body evolves. That's the biggest thing. You can don't lock yourself into a system. I think people who lock themselves into one train of thought really close themselves off to being the best possible person, living the best life that they can live.
And that's really all we're talking about is live your best life, right? How do you do that? You change.
Yeah.
Like change is the key. I think that's probably like the idea that connects the nutrition and the COVID stuff.
Yeah.
And being a good comedian or being a good doctor.
Yeah.
Like you got to change. If you're just doing the same shit over and over and over and over again, you're not doing a good job. Maybe you get your followers or whatever, but it's bullshit. Like life changes. And nowadays things are changing faster than ever, right?
Yeah.
Like the world that exists today is the world that existed 6 months ago will never exist again.
Right.
And
yeah, that's so crazy.
it's done. And it's done. And if you don't go into the sun, I know I say that, but it's like an obvious one. Like go into the fucking sun.
Well, dude, I watched one of your videos on your Instagram before you came over about how a lot of people, the last thing they do before going to bed is they look at their phone.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people look at their phone as soon as they wake up. But instead, go outside as soon as you wake up.
Drink water, like you said.
Chug water.
Nice.
I chug water and I open my blinds. That's the first thing I do. So that kind of ties in.
Hug your dog.
Hug your dog.
Meditate.
Dude. Meditate. Well, yeah, and all those things kind of tie in to that ancestral health, right? Because that's what our bodies are used to doing over thousands and millions of years, not looking at a blue light of a phone in the darkness before you go to bed, but maybe like reading or just like thinking and closing your eyes and thinking, you know?
It leads me to that concept, like leads me to this big picture about health that I try to share with people is idea of acute versus chronic stress. Like we live in this environment of chronic stress. Got to check my phone. Got to make sure that I'm answering my emails. I'm worried about work. I'm worried about money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried about, what people think of me.
Yeah.
How did my last post go?
Right.
Oh. And these are chronically pressing on you, right? That's not good. That makes you sick. But acute stress, like exercising, getting a big fat workout, a good fast.
Yeah.
It puts a stress on your body. Things like cold immersion therapy, breathing techniques, even like sauna, like UV light therapy. These are acute stresses that build your body.
Mm-hmm.
And when you pair acute stresses with sort of mindfulness or healing practices where you're like taking care of your spiritual self, that's where I think the money is with human optimization. And I think that reality, the reality of focusing on sleep, curating and protecting your morning, curating and protecting your evening,
Yeah.
protecting what you eat and not letting shit get into it, but then simultaneously stressing your body, fasting, exercising hard,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes playing hard, like going out and partying with your friends or whatever. That does these two things. It lets your body rest and rehab and like heal itself, and then it puts that stress on your body to grow and evolve and change. And it's the kind of the yin and yang, the interplay of those two things that is like the real heart of like health optimization.
Yeah.
And anyone who, from your Ben Greenfields to like anyone who's all these gurus teaching you how to be healthy, these are the concepts they're teaching you. They're teaching you how to let your body heal and your brain and your spirit heal, and then how to make it grow.
Yeah.
And doing that with intention and purpose instead of being suppressed by all this chronic negative, I call it stress or forces or pressure that make it so you can't heal and you can't grow, so you just fucking wither away slowly.
Yeah.
And the expectation that you will get older and get sicker and end up in a nursing home and end up on 20 pills, that expectation needs to be rid of.
Yeah.
The expectation should be, I'm going to fucking live my best life and then I'm going to drop dead one day. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I want to be like fucking when I'm 90 and then I'm dead. Fuck it, I did it, Like,
Sure.
That's a human animal.
Uh-huh.
Not this fucking slowly going down the drain. And all these people slowly going down the drain. Now everyone stay home so that we can protect those people that are slowly going down the drain.
Uh-huh.
What? Like, that's the fucked up part to me, is we're protecting every single life of all these sick people, and meanwhile, people are having huge mental illness. Their suicide rate is up. The negative fallout of this whole thing we're experiencing, it hasn't even kicked in yet. That's the joke from the beginning of the podcast.
Right.
It's just starting. The financial destruction we've caused, the spiritual, the fear when you go out to a store and people are afraid to interact with each other. People are afraid. I gave you a hug when I walked in.
I know.
That connects us.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's a risk. Yeah. Everything's risky. Get in your car. Having a pool is risky. People die from the pool all the time.
Right.
Like, death is a part of life, but so is hugging, human interaction. Damn, I got fired up.
I love it, dude. That's great. But it's true. And I mean, at this point, I'm not living in fear anymore. I was for the first couple weeks because you didn't know what the fuck to believe,
so.
dude.
Yeah.
You get so many mixed messages. Dude, I sent, I'm in a group chat with a couple of my bros, and one of my bros,
Bryler, Brendan, and
Breichel, and he sent an article from the New York, this was weeks ago, he sent an article from the New York Times about how the White House was predicting 3,000 deaths a day for the next 4 months. And then the White House released an article saying, no, that information is not correct. So I sent that to the group text. And then somebody else in the group text sent from the New York Times saying, no, our information is correct, and the White House saying it's incorrect is actually incorrect. And it's like, dude, I can't. I decided I'm done with news. I'll wear a mask. If you want me to wear a mask, come into your store. I'm not running in a fucking mask because I'm not near anyone anyways.
Not walking down the street when no one's
and
there
in
a fucking mask.
Dude, I'm not doing that. But I'll respect people. If you don't want to hang out, that's fine. We won't have to. We don't have to hang out.
Good. We got enough bros to hang out.
We've got enough bros, dude. You know. But I'm not doing any lawn parties anymore. You want to hang out? Come inside. Otherwise, I'll see you when you're ready to come inside, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Because I want to keep my immune system built up, and I want to keep interacting with the germs and the bacteria that we get on a daily basis that helps make us stronger. I'm not going to go visit my grandparents. I'm not going to do that. You know, I'm
high-risk patients should be protected.
Yeah. So that's where I stand on it.
But then there's a caveat to that.
As I cough.
What if your grandparent was on hospice and you didn't know? They might just have a few weeks to live. Would it be worth potentially exposing them to COVID so that you could actually spend time with them before they die?
Oh, like they don't have
Like they're
COVID,
on hospice, they're dying.
but they don't have
from
the
whatever.
COVID?
Yeah, from like they have heart disease.
Sure.
Like, and they're sick and they're 90. Because I do hospice. I do hospice one day a week.
Yeah.
I'm really passionate about it.
I think
I'm just saying, like,
that would be their decision. If they, would they want to talk to me from behind a plastic sheet or
maybe is the power, or maybe is the power and importance of touching them before they die.
Does that outweigh the possibility of giving them a virus that's going to kill them?
Shouldn't we at least be able to ask that question without being ridiculed?
Right.
Because when I bring that up amongst smart, intelligent physician types, it's like, nah, it's like dismissed. Like, no, we can't. That's unsafe. Life is more complicated than like the rules we set in place.
Yeah.
Life is unpredictable. Human relationships are complicated. We need to be more thoughtful when it comes to our nutrition, this COVID situation, how we spend time in the sun, how we approach this mask thing.
Yeah.
All this stuff, like anything about human health and human interaction and human well-being is more complicated than a book, than a paragraph, than a recommendation from the government, than a recommendation from a bro doctor over here.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, put all the pieces together and make a decision for yourself. And I really believe that, like, we live in a free country and we should keep it that way. And to marginalize people that question the status quo seems to be happening right now, and it's incredibly alarming to me because it's going to cause us to freeze in fear and fall apart.
Yeah.
That's my ominous worry about what's happening.
But then, now we got to finish. Now we got to add something good. We got to sandwich that with a good thing.
Happy sandwich.
Happy sandwich. Now maybe people are going to wake up and start actually taking their vitamins and changing up their diets and health habits and going to their doctor when they're healthy to say, hey, how do I stay healthy?
My God,
which is how you preach, you know? Dude, I don't even know my doctor. I have no idea what her name is or his name. I don't know.
You don't know what sex they are.
I don't know because I mean, I haven't gone in like 4 years. And I don't think that's a good thing necessarily. No. I think I should know. I think I shouldn't. I mean, I'm not trying to be best friends with my doctor, but I should know who they are and what their background is at least and have seen them so that they know my history, right? And I think a lot of people should have that, and I don't think a lot of people do have that at any age.
Well, I think a lot of people think that the doctor is the person you go to when you're sick. Right. It's not healthcare; it's sick care. Yeah. I'm not the first person to say that, but it's an important concept. Mm-hmm. You know, I do want to share like a really empowering thing is during this whole COVID time, I had launched my Sapien Diet and Lifestyle program, and a number of my patients who had been struggling with like work and their opportunity to really apply, you know, change their life, they use this as a springboard, and I've had such dramatic changes. You know. People in 2 or 3 months not just losing weight, but like going on like hikes they can never do their whole life. And suddenly at 50, they're hiking things that they've never been able to hike, getting off of drugs. I pride myself in my clinic that I get people off drugs.
Yeah.
Like you don't need drugs if you listen to me. And I say that with pride, you know, I'm not like, it's because that's health care. And so I do think that there's a lot of people that are using this as inspiration and opportunity to make a change, to start kicking ass at life. So now when we go back into our jobs and our day-to-day grind and sitting in traffic, we're better equipped for that chronic stress.
Yeah.
Because we've built systems to help heal ourselves and to help build ourselves. And yeah, I do. I think that's great. I just want to see our leaders promote a healthy lifestyle.
Right.
That's the fucking message. Mm-hmm. Let's promote healthy living and let's get our asses out of the past and look even further in the past.
Right.
You know, look even further in the past and realize that there's so much knowledge about human health and we don't need to constrain ourselves by the last 100 years. We can look past it.
That's a great segue into the last thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is
that's it. That's it.
Which is, and then we'll keep going for at least 4 more hours after that about Joe Rogan. Now, you a lot of the ancestral medicine that you preach and work with and really like, and I love that phrase. Anytime ancestral is in front of something, I love it. Yeah. It includes now a lot of research into the use of alternative medicines for things like therapy and
like
those
plant
things,
medicines or psychedelic
medicines and psychedelic medicines specifically, which is something I'm super interested in because I think that those things can have a huge impact on people's, you know, cognition and just ability to feel emotions and connect with themselves. And
can I ask, not to interrupt?
Yeah.
Have you had any personal experience with psychedelics?
Yeah, I have.
Which ones?
I've done mushrooms a handful of times. I've done MDMA a handful of times. And the time I was introduced to, I never did anything like until I was 18. I didn't smoke weed until I was 18. I was the last of my friends to ever smoke weed.
Healthy athlete guy.
I didn't smoke or do drugs in college. Yeah. I didn't even try mushrooms until I was 24. That was the first time. I mean, I'm 17 now, so
yeah, I was going to say
technically
a day ago.
I was 14.
Okay.
So, but I was introduced to that to psychedelics from a medicinal point of view, because I mean, I'm part of the big hippie community.
Yeah.
A lot of Burning Man friends. A lot of friends. I go to music festivals all the time.
You been to Burning Man?
No, I wanted to go this year, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
No, it's done.
Yeah.
But if it comes back, you have to.
If it comes
go.
back, I'm going 100%. But I feel so grateful, dude, because I know a lot of people that tried psychedelics or like acid in high school or junior high or even college when your brain isn't fully developed yet. Any teenager is half crazy already just because of their hormones. So as soon as you introduce something like a psychedelic into their life, of course they're not going to have
and you don't
a great
prepare
experience.
them for what it is.
You don't prepare. Yeah. But the way I was introduced to it was not at fucking Coachella at the dubstep tent, which is fine and that's super fun. But I was introduced to it just with a buddy.
Skrillex.
With just for the purpose of having an experience that could deepen our perspective and deepen our friendship. And it was just me and my best friend. We did it at a music festival at Lightning in a Bottle. It was out in the desert. It was great.
It's more than a music festival, really. It's like a cultural experience.
It's a cultural experience.
Just for people that don't know, it's really
you got to go. It's not just a bunch of hippies doing drugs, but there is that too if that's what you like. And there's also a lot of sober people. It's a great mix of people. And we happen to be of the ilk that time that wanted to experience a different realm of like existence, as hippie and trippy as that sounds. And so you put intention into it. You have a goal. The goal is not to get fucked up and listen to dubstep and go jerk off on a tree in the middle of the desert, right? That's fine if that's your intention, but that wasn't ours. Yeah. All right. Ours was to experience this as a medicine, as an experience, and then process through it the day after and talk about the experience and really take that. And I've done it maybe once a year for the past couple of years. So it's really not often, but the environment is always right. The people I do it with is always right. And I'm not here recommending or condemning it, but I am super interested in your thoughts on it, both in your personal life and in medicine, because it's starting to, they're FDA tests right now, right? For things to be used in therapy sessions.
Yeah, so you touched on so many things. Yes, right now, psychedelic medicine is going through a revolution. We are not far away from seeing MDMA approved by the federal government. We're in phase 3 clinical trials. Psilocybin is not far. I think it's in like phase 2 for clinical trials. A lot of this is driven by the VA administration. The antidepressants don't work. PTSD is a disastrous process that we don't have good resources to manage. Yeah. Depression is the same, but they're open. They've opened their mind and realized, like for example, with PTSD, with our vets, MDMA is an incredibly powerful tool when paired with therapy, with psychotherapy, to really heal. And the way I always explain sort of my perspective on psychedelic and plant medicine is, in Western medicine today, all of the drugs we have are suppressive, sedating, numbing, daily drugs that they don't heal you, they suppress, they make it tolerable. And they come with a slew of side effects that we have just accepted as okay. SSRIs are not good drugs. They've been around for decades, and they're not that effective. If you can get someone to work out every day, you can get more improvement in depression than these antidepressants are. Of course, there's a role for them. People live bizarre lives these days, and people are depressed. But what I think psychedelic medicine is these thoughtful, meaningful experiences that drive a healing process, a permanent change, if you will, of the brain and the biology to get rid of these diseases. People, depression and anxiety and psychiatric disease is thought to be some chemical, or the way I was taught in school is there's something chemically wrong with you. It's probably genetic, and you got to take these drugs. And I think that's bullshit. There's nothing wrong with you. I mean, there's probably a lot wrong with you, but it's mostly like your life, right? And some people have predisposition one way or the other, but rather than trying to suppress and sedate, we need to feel our feelings. We need to process the shit that we're ignoring. And we need to do it in a supervised, controlled way. So I'm not here promoting people doing drugs in music festivals. If they want to, I think they should be able to. That's a different story.
And there's also a difference between abuse
Yeah.
and I don't know what the opposite term for abuse would be, but there's a difference. Thoughtful
healing medicine.
Yeah.
Medicine. I mean, that's what it is. Like,
yeah.
if you do shrooms once a year with an intention, with a focus on set and setting, and with an integration, that's you. When you told your story, you described the 4 principles made famous by Michael Pollan's new book, How to Change Your Mind. If you haven't read it, phenomenal book. He sort of describes like these components, and they're so important. You set an intention. You don't just do this shit to get loaded. You do it to accomplish a goal.
Right.
Connect with your bro.
Go deeper into yourself.
Process your feelings.
Yeah.
Unload some shit from your childhood.
Right.
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 You have that intention. You have a focus on set and setting, meaning you don't just do it at a party with Skrillex blasting in your ear and some asshole spitting in your face.
Yeah.
You're going to have a miserable time. You do it in a controlled environment, like a beautiful, I wouldn't even call it music festival, a beautiful camping experience, nature, surrounded by people that are like-minded and aren't going to make you feel weird and paranoid and ostracized.
Right.
You should never do it unsupervised or without someone to support you,
Or
right?
at a family reunion.
Or
Right.
Or a funeral.
Right.
And then the last part of it is the integration, right? It's not enough to do it and to have this experience. You got to sit down afterwards and think like, what am I going to learn from it? How is that going to change what I do now?
Right.
What did that feeling mean? Like, where did it come from? And I think that it's that series of steps that the real healing comes from. And I think that a lot of us have experienced it or found it, discovered it in these, festival environments or party environments. And I think that those environments are sort of vilified because there is a lot of unsafe stuff going on. But there's a lot of love and there's a lot of community.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of safety. And there's a lot of like escapism from, again, this bizarre world we've created. And I do think that tribalism is something we didn't talk about, but a part of this ancestral health thing. Like, we want to be part of a group.
Yeah.
Like, we want to be connected with people, and not just on the internet talking shit about the other group, but like hugging each other. And it's not all sexual, right? That's the other thing that this all gets like kind of lumped in. Oh, I'm going to do MDMA and fuck.
And have an orgy.
No,
right.
no, man. MDMA is an emotional button that releases this like amazing opportunity to open your heart.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's overwhelming because they're so closed.
Right.
And then for other people that are suffering from PTSD, when paired with a therapist that could walk them through their feelings, it can unlock their ability to like tolerate their past.
Now, specifically, that's
huge.
That's where the trials are right now, right? As far as I understand it, it's they're having people in controlled environments, a therapist's office, the person and a therapist, and they're giving them the dose and they're processing through their experiences and their feelings to try and help them overcome a burden like PTSD, right?
It's what we're doing at Evolve Healthcare. I actually launched with Dr. Kalstein a ketamine therapy program.
Cool.
At this time, MDMA and psilocybin are not legal. They're class 1 felony drugs.
Dude, aren't they like more than weed? Or is weed more than... There's something weird about the class drugs. Maybe they're all like as bad as heroin.
Well, it's like weird shit. Yeah, like marijuana is like a class 1, I think, which is like the most illegal shit ever.
Isn't that with heroin?
Heroin's not, because heroin has I think because heroin's an opiate.
Or something?
Yeah, I think heroin's an opiate. And so I think opiates are, because there's a medical, so the classifications is driven by is there a medical use?
Oh,
and
okay.
so with marijuana, the federal government's position is there is no medical use, which is why it's fucking bizarre, right?
so
Because
weird.
yeah, it's bizarre. But then I think with opiates, I don't know where heroin lands on it, but I think most opiates are, I think they're 2 or 3 because I prescribe them, so I can't prescribe a class 1 drug.
Right.
It's illegal.
Oh, okay.
But then
Okay.
like the other weird one might be that might surprise people is like cocaine. You're like, cocaine's shitty. Well, no, it's been used in anesthesia as
was
a
in
numbing
Coca-Cola.
agent. Yeah, but it's been used as a numbing agent, right?
Right,
Before
that's
you
right,
had
yeah.
lidocaine
Yeah.
and procaine, you had cocaine.
Yeah.
Right? So they use cocaine for a bunch of stuff. Cocaine was like a commonly used drug until the 1980s when Len Bias had a heart attack
Yeah.
from taking it.
Yeah.
And most people don't even know how prevalent cocaine was
Great
in our
documentary,
culture.
30 for 30
Great.
on
yes.
on
Yes.
Len
So
Bias.
I mean, there's so much misinformation when it comes to drugs. And if you look at my Instagram, you guys will see a video, food versus drugs. Because in my world,
Yeah.
food and drugs are part of the human experience. I believe that throughout the evolution of man, there's something called the stoned ape theory. I don't know how much I believe it, but I certainly believe that psychedelic experiences have been a part of our tribal growth as humans and our understanding of the world as far for the history of man. And there's some great fun theories that say that there's a lot more psychedelic drugs around, well, hundreds of thousands of years ago, and we sure liked them, and so we used them
Dude,
all up.
It's in like cave art.
Yeah,
and all
yeah,
this
there's
stuff.
a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
A lot of religious ideology and iconography is certainly influenced by psychedelia. And,
Yeah.
and like they weren't getting high on, meditation and hugs.
Right.
They were taking substances. And so, a lot of Buddhist ideology and is anchored in mushroom experiences. So I really think it's back to ancestral health. I think it's a part of the human experience to have transcendent experiences. I think drugs have been vilified and fear has been created around them, and that creates a control so that the drug companies, through these studies and through their organizations, can push whatever drug makes sense financially at the time. And I think that people are getting savvy to it. And I think that I've really seen people's ideas about mushrooms specifically change because they're a natural product. It's not like a synthesized chemical.
Yeah, there seems to be a group of people that are like, okay, mushrooms and weed, but not any of the stuff that's created in a lab.
Yeah, which is funny because all the drugs that are pushed by drug companies are created in
created
the lab, and
right.
those are okay. So there's like cognitive
Right.
dissonance,
Yeah.
and there's just people. It's again back to this point about food. It's like, be thoughtful. Don't just eat and feel like shit and wake up in the morning and go to your doctor and ask for a pill. Sit back and be like, fuck, maybe when I ate that whole pizza, it fucked me up.
Dude, that's what happened to Michael Jordan, dude. He didn't get food poisoning, dude. He had a whole pizza.
He had a whole
I don't know if
pizza.
you watched the documentary.
I haven't seen that episode yet. I heard
Yeah, he
about
got
it. It's
at
good.
the flu game, the famous flu game in
Yeah.
'97. He had a whole fucking pizza the night before
is
the
that what that
game,
was?
and he was like, "Man, I got food poisoning." No, dude, you ate a whole fucking pizza the night before you played a basketball game. Anyways, what's the specific ketamine? How are you integrating ketamine into your practice? Like, are you able to share info on that?
Absolutely. Yeah, ketamine is a drug. It's one of the most popular drugs in the world.
I've never done it, but I hear good things.
Yeah.
I also hear bad things, but I'm
Yeah,
interested.
I
in
don't
your
encourage people to. It's a very powerful drug. I would never encourage people to do it recreationally.
I've
maybe-
seen people do it recreationally and not come out.
Yeah, it's not good. I wouldn't do it recreationally at all.
Yeah.
We talked about some of these other drugs that probably have some role in the recreational world. Again, not recommending it.
Right.
But with ketamine, I'm really discouraging it because it's very powerful. It's very different than most drugs. We use it in the world of anesthesia in hospitals.
That's right.
It's a really
Yeah.
great anesthetic because it doesn't cause respiratory depression. So a lot of like opiates and benzodiazepines that we use, they make you stop breathing. So you want to put someone out because they broke their arm and you want to break their arm in place. It's a common situation in the emergency room. Just use that example. If I give you a bunch of fentanyl, it puts you out, but you stop breathing and you might end up like needing a ventilator
Right.
just for a broken arm. So We use ketamine a lot in those kind of situations because it puts you in like this dreamlike, loose, like out of its state.
Yeah.
Like even more like a sleep, basically.
Yeah.
And you don't feel pain, and then you wake up. You just keep breathing. You wake up and you feel pretty cool. Like it's you're like, oh, right. So we use it in that world, but there's an overwhelming amount of research over the since the 1950s when it was developed in the lab to use it for mood disorder, specifically refractory depression, addiction, specifically alcohol addiction, a ton of evidence for that, and some other mood type things, anxiety. But I'll speak specifically on the addiction and the depression because there's just really, really good evidence, and that's what our clinic focuses on. People should know that just recently Johnson & Johnson made an intranasal spray called Spravato, or S-ketamine. It's the S enantiomer of ketamine, which is essentially the same thing. The reason why they had to do that is because ketamine is a generic drug. No one can own it. It's public. So a drug company can't make money on ketamine. It's very, very cheap. It's like $5 for a bottle that could last forever, right? So by making an S enantiomer, putting it in a nasal spray, they now own it and they sell it. And it's approved by the FDA, and this is important because if that's approved by the FDA and they know if it's efficacious and safe, then ketamine's efficacious and safe when done under supervision by an experienced provider. So I think that's really helped open the door to this movement. I offer Spravato. There's a lot. It's very expensive, and insurances are very resistant to pay. So I've had a hard time onboarding Spravato, but ketamine's available. I'm the medical director, and the way our clinic is set up, which is different than many, many other clinics across the country. Most clinics, it's a doctor, an anesthesiologist, an emergency medicine doctor, someone who's got a lot of experience with ketamine. Those tend to be the specialists, sometimes psychiatrists. They put in an IV. They give you a high-dose infusion. You go into this like dreamlike state. You're there with like blinders on and everything's suppressed, and you have this experience. I'm not a big fan of that approach. I don't think it's the best. The way we set it up is I have experience with the drug as a medical doctor. I partnered with Dr. Kalstein, who is certified, trained in ketamine therapy. She provides actual therapy, talk therapy, music therapy, whatever it is for that client. We customize that experience for each patient because everyone's different. Yeah. We do a series of treatments, usually 3 to 6 treatments is our initial experience. And then you do some maintenance depending on how everyone responds differently. There's no magic bullet here, right? But everybody gets an intention setting. Yeah. Everyone gets that intent. They meet with me from a medical standpoint. They meet with her to engage in intention setting. We discuss we don't give them a huge dose right away. You do a small bit at a time. Sometimes you get 2 doses during an experience. Not everyone's the same. Can't make it the same for everyone. You set your intention. We have a beautiful room, like very thoughtfully put together, quiet, comfortable, set. We make sure that the setting is nice. The
Skrillex is playing in the background.
Skrillex playing in the background, and there's hotties running around. And then, so you have your therapies, and then you have your integration. Yeah. And you talk with her. She is our therapist. We're working to bring in more therapists, but we're just kind of growing the program. And you have your integration. What does it mean? What do I do with this information? Most people have revelations or ideas, and they don't know what they mean. And you don't always know, but to have some guidance in integrating what it means is the most powerful thing. Yeah. So
do you see this type of therapy or this type of practice becoming mainstream soon?
It is.
It is like out of the trial phase, I mean.
Ketamine's legal. We're out of the trial phase. We're doing it.
Oh, it's not a trial. What about stuff like MDMA?
MDMA will be legal by 2022, 2023. The question is, does it get stuck in sort of like the VA hospital system where it's sort of being pushed? There's an organization called MAPS that some of you might know about.
I know what that is.
And they're teamed up, and so they're
for people who don't. MAPS, what does it stand for?
Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies,
something like that.
I don't know. I just pulled that shit out of my ass.
Yeah, it sounded right.
Let's
go with that.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Okay.
But they're amazing, and they've been promoting MDMA. They're really promoting psychedelic medicine, but they focus on MDMA because MDMA is just, it's very powerful. And we need it. Like, we need MDMA to help people heal. And so they're doing great work. And, what we're hoping is that by having a meaningful ketamine program, we have really great results with our patients, that, when they open it up, they'll probably do it in a way where you're become like a certified treatment center, and you have to go through some formalities, which I think that's the right way to do it. Of course, it shouldn't just be like, here, any doctor can prescribe it, because most of my colleagues have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about.
Right.
And if they start prescribing this shit, we're gonna have problems, right?
Yeah.
It has to be done by thoughtfully trained people. And so just like Dr. Kalstein got trained and certified in ketamine therapy, and I'm an internal medicine physician who specializes in internal drug management, we are a team that can thoughtfully deliver the ketamine experience. That's what should be replicated in the world of MDMA and
Will psilocybin become
Yeah,
hand in hand with
psilocybin?
MDMA?
They turn it into a pill. And
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
It's very similar. Psilocybin, in my opinion, has a little more reach than MDMA. MDMA is very, very powerful. I think that, Michael Pollan talks in his book, The Betterment of the Well Man. So yes, we're talking about healing diseases and curing and really giving. But I think all of us struggle. Like, everyone's got their demons. Everyone's got anxieties and things they can work on. So I do think there's a role for this stuff. Again, not willy-nilly, but with thought, to help even a healthy person that's just under a lot of stress and is carrying some baggage, and they just want to have an experience to shake up their brain and give them some perspective.
Yeah.
And I really think that that's going to be down the pipe. I think that's scary for people to accept, that you can use these drugs to make you healthier.
Yeah.
Not just,
that's where generationally I hope and pray people will start to see like a sweeping change. Because you talk to people like our parents' age, and unless they were a hippie, they kind of came up thinking that drugs are the root of all evil, and not even open to the idea that they could have a medicinal purpose.
Well, the drug war was fucked up.
Yeah.
DARE was fucked up.
Oh,
Sorry.
dude, DARE! What a joke!
That shit is bullshit.
Oh my god, it's so funny, dude.
Abstinence education is bullshit. You're a fucking person. You need to educate yourself and do what's right for you. Telling people to not fuck is crazy. Telling people to never touch a drug is crazy. I'm sorry, it's crazy. It's fantasy. It's not crazy. It's fantasy.
Right.
It's like I was saying, it's a fantasy to sit on your couch, eat shit, don't go in the sun, not move, and then go to your doctor and expect a pill to fix. It's a fantasy.
Yeah.
It's a fantasy that's sold to you by drug and food companies on TV. The reality is that life is way more complicated and dynamic, and you got to put effort in to be happy. You got to know thyself.
Yeah.
And you got to build relationships with doctors and friends and thought leaders and pursue meaningful education, and not just pull up CNN, see the 10 headlines back. Fuck, I'm scared. I need to wear a mask. Right. I hate to use that example, but what's going on with COVID is a symptom of our whole approach to health and humanity. And it's mindlessness. It's slapping like a one size fits all sticker on everyone. It doesn't work. And I do hope that individualized healthcare, the reemergence of a doctor-patient relationship, a focus on tribalism and
mindfulness. That's how you beat the mindlessness, is with mindfulness.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're connecting, and why we were excited to connect with each other. I don't think your role is that different than mine as a comedian. You bring joy to people.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how you mentioned to me that you had a hard time when COVID hit. It's because you give yourself and you get that energy back with the people during your shows. That's fucking life. That's life-giving shit. And this whole thing, we're taking away that human interaction from people. And I'm telling everyone right now, the ramifications of this shit are going to be bad. The fallout from the changes in behavior. We are not China. We are an individualistic nation. That makes us even more dependent on each other to feed each other.
Yeah.
We need to snap out of it and really reconnect with each other. I don't know. And so, you asked me like, I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't know. I hope that I see some silver linings, but I don't see our leadership promoting healthy lifestyle.
Right.
And until that happens, we're all fucked.
Well, that's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for.
We promote the healthy lifestyle. If you're going to leave people with a final word on the healthy lifestyle, dude. And I love your mission. I love your style. I love your moves.
I love you too, Brent.
I love you, dude.
I love you, bro.
And I really, really appreciate
bro love.
The bro love. And I really appreciate the effort that you're putting in and the willingness to forge these new like paths and try to create these new paths in people's minds and divert people away from old ways of thinking, because that I really do think that that's where people get trapped, man. Did I have anything? I think we hit everything I wanted to talk about, dude. Is there anything else that you want to like leave people with or anything? We just nailed 2 hours.
Damn. I mean, I think this is the message I've left people with on a couple other opportunities to share. I think this is where it is. People, I said, think for yourself. I want people to take responsibility for your happiness and your health into your own hands and stop looking for someone else to give you the solution. Stop looking to the government to give you the solution. Stop looking to a guru, but take yourself in your hands, visualize what it is you want to be and how you want to be, and manifest that shit. Mm-hmm. No matter what. And that's going to take work, and it's going to take like uncomfortableness and stress, acute stress.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. It's worth it because everyone I know that snaps out of it, all my patients that drink my Kool-Aid and like just say fuck it, I'm gonna drop the breakfast or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna like change my life. You feel fucking better.
Yeah.
You feel better, and you become empowered, and only like you can do that for yourself. Listening to me might inspire you, but I'm not gonna make you change. Only you can. And I think that in a time when we're all being told what to do more and more, mm-hmm. it's the time to step back and say, what do I want to do? Mm-hmm. Like, what do I want my life to look like? And then manifest that shit. Do it. And then we'll live in a better world if everyone does that shit.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Fuck yeah.
I love it, dude.
Bro,
I love it, bro.
If I could do the snap, I would do it. I have no idea how to snap.
Put these two fingers, the middle finger and the thumb, middle finger. There you go. And then you got to keep this one loose. And then you just got to feel fucking sick, dude.
I feel like
it takes practice and it takes years of being a douche, which I was around many a douche in high school, and that's where I learned it. Gary, where can people find you if they want to look you up?
Yeah. So evolvehealthcare.com. That's my clinic if you're interested in like any of my services. You're in the LA area. At Dr. Gary Evolve is my Instagram. That's probably where I'm most active from a social media standpoint. And a lot of this ancestral health lives on sapien.org.
What's up with the documentary?
Oh yeah, I would be dumb not to mention it. Food Lies is our documentary. We're in post-production. It's going to be amazing. Brian Sanders is spearheading that with my team, and he's got great content at food.lies on Instagram.
Is it about how food tells you little lies?
Yeah.
About how
the carrot
bread will
talking
whisper
shit
in
to
your
you
ear and say, hey.
No, it's a lot of the shit you just heard. We're gonna tell the story of how it happened. We've interviewed like the world's leaders in nutrition. We have people that don't agree with us, that do agree with us. We're not trying to promote a dogma. We're trying to like elucidate the truth. Mm-hmm. And the truth is like it's not a conspiracy. It's a bunch of crazy shit that's happened over time. Multiple factors, multiple forces at play. And if you just get educated and see what's happening, then you can make your own decision. You could be carnivore, you could be pescatarian, you could be vegetarian. Shit, you could be vegan, but know what you're doing,
right,
and do it safely. Right. And that's it. That's it. We all just want to live our best lives. Food Lies is our first project. We have dreams of doing the vitamin D story. I think that's something that we're really excited about sharing, and we can talk about that.
When does Food Lies come out? Or roughly, is there like a rough window?
I don't know.
Next year?
We're hoping to release it by the end of this year. I can't comment on it. One thing that we've decided with Food Lies is rather than putting out a Talking Heads documentary, like, people just talking, we're putting in a ton of effort creating imagery, cartoons, story.
Good.
Like, we want people to enjoy the movie. One of the things that inspired me is this movie, The Magic Pill, by Pete Evans. It's on Prime and Amazon. It's a great movie. It's a great movie, and it shows you the kind of medicine I practice, other doctors practicing. And our goal is to create a great movie. It should be entertaining, whether or not you want to believe it or not, or want to be upset by it. I want you to be entertained. Everything that I do, I want people to be entertained. I don't think that it's hard to learn when it's dry and like not fun.
Yeah.
I think all this shit can be fun. You don't need to.
You don't want it to be the movie that a substitute teacher would put on in class. You know what I mean?
I want it to be the movie that people share with each other, and they're like, holy shit. Like, holy shit. Like these 30 for 30s, like you and me. Like, damn, that's crazy what happened. I just want it to be that. You don't have to change your whole life after watch the movie, but know what you don't know. And, and then you can make an informed decision.
Know what you don't know. We should make some bumper stickers, dude.
Fuck yeah.
Put that shit on a shirt, dude.
I can't do it, motherfucker.
Keep practicing, dude. You'll come back for another episode, and you'll be able to do it by then. Dr. Gary, bro.
Bro.
Dr. Bro, dude.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you so much for doing this, man.
I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
This was a blast.
Yeah, this was fun. We'll do it again.
Fuck yeah.
We'll do it again. Okay, that's it.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody. I love you.
Bye-bye.